Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. I have a lot of people in the audience today. We have a beautiful Wednesday. Sorry, our first time switching our finance meetings from Friday to Wednesday. So welcome to the new time slot. We're here at the May 7th, 2025 Finance Economic Resiliency Committee. We have a packed agenda today. We have a lot of items that are very critical to neighbors. So we have a lot of residents in the audience as well. We have a couple of time certains that are teed up. I'm going to hand it over to our CFO and our city attorney to get the technicalities out of the way, and then we'll get started immediately.
Good morning. Today's meeting of the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the committee physically present and remaining members, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. In order to participate in today's meeting virtually, members of the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 toll-free and enter the webinar ID, which is 863-6059-5462#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which once again is 863-6059-5462. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you. And then we have a couple of announcements. Item NB8 has been withdrawn. OB4 and MB15 are deferred. We have 3 time certains. MB28 on Swim Week has a 10:30 time certain, will be the first item. MB5, Miami Beach Senior High Improvements, has a 10:50 time certain. And MB35 on Sunset Islands Park as an 11 a.m. time certain. And then we have several linked items, if heard, will be heard at the same time. NB4 and MB12 on employee parking programs. OB7 and MB13 on various economic development updates. MB31 and MB31 and 32 on special taxing and security districts. MB14 and MB23, various alleyway improvement projects, and MB7, MB27 on projection mapping items. That is it, Chair.
Okay, excellent. So why don't we get started with our time certain NB28 for Swim Week.
Thank you. MB28, discuss expanding Miami Beach's partnership with Miami Swim Week. MB28.
Lizette, welcome. Congratulations on a number of just incredible events that I know you have been front and center for the city. We are truly becoming the world's epicenter for events, art, culture, sports, health, wellness. You name it this season, we've had it, and they've been getting worldwide attention. So kudos to you and your team.
Thank you,
and
sir.
Let's talk about how to make our city even better.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Lucida Arrogante, Director of Tourism and Culture, City of Miami Beach. I'm happy here to present to you, discuss expanding Miami Beach's partnership with Miami Swim Week. This was a referral item that's sponsored by Commissioner Magazine, our chair, and also Commissioner Suarez. Miami Swim Week is produced by Function. It's going to have its 21st edition here in Miami Beach in Collins Park. It's a premier event, swimwear event, where international swimwear brands are showcased with runway shows, and there's amazing events happening in all of our adjacent hotel properties. The event organizer, Function, has shared that they are going to have a new element to Miami Swim Week this year, and it's called the Swimwear Icons Hall of Fame. This will be recognizing figures in the swimwear and fashion industry that have created a huge impact. Miami Swim Week did not apply for any special event funding specifically for this event, but they have received funding from Miami Beach VCA for just Miami Swim Week in the amount of $57,000 for the 2025 show. They are seeking a sponsorship of $75,000 specifically for the Swimwear Icons Hall of Fame event. And today we have representatives from their team, which is Sean Vardy, and we have Sally Stoyanovich from Function. They do have a short video that they'd like to share with you really quick. PJ, if you have it ready.
Excellent, thank you. Kudos, as I understand how this works, Sale and Natalia, you essentially created Swim Week from scratch 20 some years ago. It's become iconic and integral to Miami Beach. And is my understanding, the week that we actually have it had historically been our second slowest tourism week. The week after Memorial Day weekend, so coupled with also the week after Labor Day, are our two slowest times all year. So this is this type of thing is what's great for our global brand. It's an ambassador for our city. I'd love to see in a video like that that's getting so many social media impressions, even more homage to Miami Beach, if you can keep that in mind. But let me hand it over to you and your team.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Vardy. I'm the CEO of Think Hospitality, and I've been partnering with Sale and Natalia for the last, 7, 8 years. My role in this is we control or operate and manage, 3,000, 3,500 hotel rooms here in Miami Beach. So when we see positive impacts from tourism without any form of crime and without any, kind of issues to the public, we kind of run towards these things. And what we were trying to do is come together over the last 2 to 3 years and figure out a way to kind of encourage this or grow this to something that's a little bit bigger than it currently is. And I think we've done a really great job by coming together as a community and, getting the right programming. Tied in with Miami Beach and what we're trying to do as a city and promote health and wellness and, take a global, if you think about Swim Week for just a moment, it's strange, but it's really one of one. There is no other swim week that we're competing against in Australia or in any other parts of the world. So Miami has that global audience. 4 billion impressions is not something to sneeze at. And I think what we can do is we could come together and grow this thing to something a little bit bigger than it is already. We believe that we could also help some of the programming and kind of revitalization of things that you guys are trying to do. I know that there's a Lincoln Road conversation, and one of the things that we wanted to do with utilization of the grant that we're asking for is, again, not only to get us to get more marketing dollars, but we wanted to shoot a commercial and maybe use some of the runway components of that we do on Lincoln Road so that the Miami Beach would actually have something that's tangible that they can use in that rebranding effort. We wanted to make sure that we promote the health and wellness throughout the week. And again, we wanted to make sure that we, communicate with our global audience by getting bigger individuals, very similar to, if you all remember how Mercedes-Benz used to be here, to kind of get back to where that was. And, we feel that the timing is right and we have the team to do it.
I appreciate that. And just to talk about the different place we are as a city, and you all probably know more about this than me, but I remember following as a private citizen, maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago, where Mercedes-Benz actually walked away from Miami Beach and said, Miami Beach is no longer aligned with our brand and our identity for what we want as a show. And to sit here and think, all these years later, now Miami Swim Week is looking to expand, really talks about how full circle that we've come as a city. So I'll hand it over to my colleagues or staff if you have any comments, but this is the exact type of thing that I think we double and triple it down on. We really look to promote, especially as it's not just for everything that it brings to our city, 30,000 attendees, but also the intangible benefits of getting impressions like this on social media, the advertising, having a film shot on Lincoln Road as we're trying to reinvigorate that. I think this is the type of thing that we double and triple down on.
Yeah, and I further that to say that we've done this for 15 plus 20 years, and there's been no element of crime. There's been no element of bad acting. This is a community event that a lot of the people that are, that don't leave for the summer kind of join and corral around, and it's something that everyone kind of runs towards. And I think that those type of events that happen in our city that, really are a little bit community based and people can actually enjoy as well, are things that we need to be encouraged and kind of push forward.
Do you, Sean, I'm sorry we weren't able to connect. I know you had reached out to me, but I was digging out some piles of things. Do you have is there an opportunity to do some outreach with maybe junior high or high school kids who are interested in design, fashion, do kind of workshops, hands-on kind of outreach like that?
Yeah, we do it. We actually, so what happens is, it's very strange, like what happens in this week. So first of all, you have mothers that come with their children that are 15, 16, 17 years old that are getting introduced. You have people that are asking questions and they're like, how do I get involved? What do I do? And, the team behind me, what they do is they kind of walk them around, almost kind of like an intern for the week as a workshop, very similar to what you're talking about, and talk about the importance of like not only starting a career in this, what you have to look out for, what you have to look for, what is a casting, how does it work, why does it work? So to answer your question, we already do it, but we could formalize it along with you guys and be happy to. We do a lot of philanthropic stuff inside of our companies collectively. And honestly, the more stuff that we can do in terms of education, we run towards again. So we'd be happy to put something together.
That would be great. And I'm thinking even more around design rather than event management, which obviously both are interesting career opportunities, but.
Yeah, so we do, we host couple of school shows. Of course, we do that for free for them. For example, Miami-Dade College, like their fashion school, we have, St. Thomas comes and does the show, and that's kind of part of their curriculum. It's like a part of their final, showcase for the students. We also do a lot of programs where we partner up schools. We have this program called Upcycle, where we partner up schools with big designers, where they kind of upcycle the leftover materials, right? Because it's very hard to recycle the bathing suits and things like that. So we kind of put the schools with designers, and they design the collections, and then we also award them with the scholarship money, right? So whoever of these kids wins, they get scholarship money for the school. So we're heavily involved with like education in schools. And
Yeah, so that would be great if we could bring it down to the high school level, so it's Miami Beach specific. Yeah. And then as we're gearing up for Blue Zone's accreditation, hopefully over the next number of years, I know this is mostly a fashion-driven event. Is there are any of the shows dedicated to more functional swimwear? I mean, most of the swimwear is actually functional, but if you wanted to do a segment about, have a show that's specifically about ocean swimming or,
Yes, we have shows like that, for example, we had one of our designers, it's like very big in organic, the fabrics and things like that. And so we partner up with Miami Beach Ballet, and then they were like doing like a special kind of collection for that. So we do have, and it's trying to make more and more partnerships like that, with the established designers, because they also spread the word further. So yeah, we have programs like that, and we're happy to sit down with you and show you like all that we've done in the past. So.
And we also do ocean cleanups, it's part of our routine. I'm not sure if you've seen the agenda of what we actually go through for like all the different people that come and sign up. But there is so many different events that, probably that are not really swim week runway kind of versions of it that are, part of this. And that's why it's been so great. And that's why it's grown really, because we keep adding on, again, there's a health and wellness component, there's ocean cleanup component, there's designing. We should I'll probably send you kind of the agenda of what the individuals have and anything that we could, throw a little bit of fire on to grow, I'd be happy to.
Great.
The reason why we're here is to make this thing a little bit bigger than it is. We've done a great job of just, getting to this point, but it's now for us to kind of really utilize some of the tools that we have and, run towards a global audience.
Terrific. Thank
And
you.
I think as part of this, you were also looking at bringing somebody pretty iconic for the kickoff of this. Was that ever able to come to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't actually know any of the names, so I would have to defer to Natalia. But
We will, because we're preparing like a press release, so give us like a day or so to finalize it. So by the end of this week is the goal to, put it out there and yeah.
Well, I'm glad I didn't say it then.
Yeah.
All right. So I think Commissioner Suarez has moved that. I'll second.
If I could just ask one question, I think in reading the item, it mentioned about requesting a special event funding. And I do there's, it states there's $57,000 was through the VCA, which is basically Miami Beach money. Is this confirming the $57,000, or is there some additional money above the $57,000 we're already giving?
I think this was for request for $75,000 away from the GMCVB as they're expanding this into the Global Hall of Fame and the Icons of Swim Week.
Yeah, it's a different, it's completely different event, it's completely different, entity. There is, the Hall of Fame is separate from the Miami Swim Week.
Yes, if
But
I
it
may.
happens during the same time.
If I may, Jason, so they're receiving $57,000 from Miami Swim Week, which includes Paraíso Swim Week and all the other events. This is a new element that they're adding to Miami Swim Week.
And the amount's 75,000. It wasn't in the memo, that's what I was saying. So it's 75,000 is the ask?
It's in the memo, yes.
Oh, I missed that,
It's,
okay. So I think the motion, if I'm hearing, would be return to commission with a favorable recommendation to consider special ed funding in the amount of $75,000 to support the Swimwear Icons Hall of Fame event to be considered during the FY26 budget process. And I believe Commissioner Suarez made the motion. Okay. All in favor? Hearing none opposed, passes 3-0.
Congrats, look forward to an amazing week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Let's go on to the, can we get the 10:50 time certain for the Miami Beach Senior High improvements?
Okay, let me get that in there. NB5, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee, discuss possible contribution to Miami Beach Senior High School to help fund renovations of the field. NB5.
Good morning, Leslie Rosenfeld, Chief Education Officer. This item is a request from the Miami Beach Senior High School PTA to support some proposed field improvements. We have with us Julie Basner, who is the president of the Miami Beach Senior High PTA, so I will ask her to inform you.
Thank you. Good morning, and I'm here with Rachel Weissman. She's part of the PTA leadership team at Beach High. So we respectfully request your consideration of a financial contribution to the installation of a shade structure that we feel is necessary on our campus. The idea for a shade structure originated when our PTSA raised $24,000 last November on Give Miami Day. And we typically use that money toward some sort of capital improvement project with the principal's preference, basically. So Mr. Tarosian, our principal, had suggested that we improve the athletic field amenities, which include bleachers, a shade structure, a fence between the bleachers and the athletic field, storage sheds, and also privacy from the city's, landscaping to provide privacy from the city's industrial space that's adjacent to the field. So with the PTSA's commitment to contribute $24,000 and the school's commitment to purchase 2 sets of bleachers, 2 storage sheds, and the fence that I referenced, our request of the city is strictly for a shade structure and concrete pads that are necessary to support the 5 sets of bleachers that we will eventually have. Why is this so important to us? We feel that our outdoor spaces at Beach High are vital to student life. And as you all know, because the city contributed to our patio project, we feel that's a testament to that. Our field is currently being utilized for PE classes, for athletic events, practices, and also extracurricular activities. As you know, extreme heat has become more frequent and intense, and so this project addresses a health and safety concern, not only for our students, but for our staff and for visitors. Our students are exposed all throughout the day. Many of them practice and they play with heavy gear on. Games are often played in the late afternoon while it's still quite hot because we don't have lights on the field. We are the only public high school, as you know, in Miami Beach, and I believe the only school in Miami Beach which doesn't offer any shaded area for play. Furthermore, we believe that This would serve as a resource for the wider community, offering a space for various activities outside of school hours and athletic events. A little bit about the shade structure. It would span 4 sets of bleachers, and each set of bleachers can hold 125 students, so that would benefit as many as 500 students at one time. It's designed to withstand severe weather events, and it will be both functional and aesthetically integrated with the field. Okay, in terms of cost, and I did submit last night, it was kind of late, but an updated quote. So I'm not sure if you've seen it, but we enlisted the help of a contractor who we had worked with at Beach High on a prior project. And we asked him to bid out this project, and he did, and then began to assemble some cost estimates for us. And so I'm not sure if you have the bid in front of you, but, or the quote, sorry. The cost of the sunshade is approximately $93,000. The concrete pads, $25,000. And the contractor's overhead and profit, about $25,000. So that brings us to $143,000 and change. Now, with the PTSA's contribution, we're requesting $120,000 from the city of Miami Beach to make this entire project a reality.
Chair? Yeah. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
How much of an area does this cover?
The bleachers, currently we have 3 on one side of the field, and we would add 2 more on that same side of the field.
The only reason I ask is because, you know, I wanted to put a shade, we did, we approved a shade structure on Loomis Park and the kids' playground, and that was like $250,000. And you have a contractor that's saying they can do it for $140. So, you know, I don't know, someone.
Canopy Park was even more. It was like
Yeah,
$400,000.
I mean, it seems like hold on. I'd like staff to come up here and tell me why is they're getting a better deal than we are. John?
Sorry, John.
Well, seeing how I don't know the exact specifications of what they have, I can't tell you if they are getting a better deal, if it's apples to apples or if it's apples to watermelons. I can tell you that we go off of different piggyback bids, state contracts. All of our items are extremely procured, digitally procured for competitiveness. So I can't speak to what they've been given, unfortunately.
So the quote includes 5 concrete pads that are measure 15 by 24. So
About 116 feet long.
I mean, it looks like they're getting a great deal. And, you know, at this rate, we could put a lot more shades on a lot of our city parks. I don't want to, I'm sorry to veer off topic, but, you know, our staff tells us it's $250,000 for like a little shade in a park, but you're telling me between 3 different bleachers, it's only $150,000.
Again, I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know if it's apples to apples.
Okay.
We're calling up here with a non-city employee provided quote on the fly.
Maybe you can provide it to us, and then we'll give it to John.
refer you our contractor if you'd like.
Yeah.
I mean, he happens to be an approved vendor of Miami-Dade County Public
And
Schools,
so-
but also a parent.
Right, and with, you know, are we, I'm assuming that the school board is on with this, right?
I was just about
Because-
to say that this is pending the school board's approval.
Are they funding any of this?
Well, the principal, out of his discretionary fund, is funding part of this, and I believe the school district is funding his budget, so.
How much, if you mind me asking, what is he allocating toward this project?
2 bleachers, like 5,000 each.
Yeah.
10,000, plus the sheds are not, the fence.
20.
But if I may, if the shade structure was 143 with the ask of 120, the 23,000 is coming from the PTA or from the school?
From the PTA.
And,
So of the shade structure, there's nothing from the school board.
and as
No.
far, I mean, technically this is a school board issue, but are they allowed to hire their contractor to do
Oh,
this?
actually, that was one of the items I was going to
Oh,
ask
That
about.
was the question was
Implementation.
I've spoken-
If I may ask a question on my item, Mr. Chair.
Oh, this is your item?
Yes. I wasn't able to introduce my item, but Dr. Rosenfeld does a good job, a very good job, and I would defer to Dr. Rosenfeld any day. So, and to your point, Commissioner Suarez, the quote was requested by the PTA, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the PTA, it's not the governmental entity, and so a lot of times people will see a difference in quotes, unfortunately, that the city would get as opposed to a private entity getting a quote for the same thing. It's horrible. It's a broken system of bureaucracy, and it doesn't serve the taxpayers well. And in this case, the fact that the PTA is involved and that the PTA is getting the quote, it sounds like, Commissioner Suarez, to your point, it is to the taxpayers' benefit, because otherwise it would likely cost more.
Can I
Even
speak
though
to
it
that?
is a contractor that has been competitively procured through the public school system.
So this project would be managed by Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And I did speak with a project manager who, I think he was the project manager assigned to our patio project and also to our most recent project, to understand if we had the ability to select who we wanted to use as a contractor. And what he explained to me was that if the school district is not funding this project, that they would permit us to use whomever we want. And now this contractor happens to be an approved vendor of Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
So, Mr. Chair, if, I think, the PTA has done its part in raising funds for this, and I think the PTA has always shown itself to be a good partner, and the city has prided itself in supporting it. It's not a city-managed project. Ultimately, this is going to be a project managed by Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I want confirmation of that.
I'm not so, I can't speak to that confidently, simply because this is really the first time we're having a conversation in this space. If there's a desire for us to perhaps support the project, then we would reach to MDCPS to better understand. We would also have to reach to our procurement department to better understand the process. I suspect this could look something like the scoreboard installation, where it started as a PTA requested partnership, where the PTA had obtained funding from the NFL as a donation. That donation came into the city, and the city ultimately managed the project, but we did go through our procurement process because the cost exceeded the threshold. So being that the cost of this shade structure will probably follow suit, I'm not 100% sure that this would be a project managed by MDCPS. It just depends on the conversation we have here and how we want to approach them.
Commissioner Bott.
A couple of questions for you. Dr. Rosenfeld, is the field currently a shared use field like we have in some other parts of the city, where if the school is closed, the community can use the facilities?
So we do have an agreement with Miami-Dade County Public Schools that was part of the city's contribution to the artificial turf, where the city gains access to the field on Sundays to be managed and scheduled through our Parks Department. So I would defer to our Parks Director as to whether or not the city has taken advantage of that partnership, but that is the only time of use we currently have.
Okay.
And it would remain that, because Miami Beach Senior High School students use their field well into the evening hours. The city would not have an opportunity to gain access.
Potentially Saturday?
Currently, we were restricted to Sundays because the school uses their field on Saturdays.
Oh, okay. Okay. The other question, Julie, I think maybe more for you guys, and it's just my ignorance. I'm not trying to play gotcha. the field is a practice field mostly, or recreation, or gym class or whatever, right? But the teams, a football team in particular, plays at the at Flamingo Park.
I actually spoke with one of our vice assistant principals yesterday over athletics to confirm that exactly. And he did say that some of the games get played, the football games get played at Beach High, as do soccer games and also flag football.
Okay, so it is used for competition occasionally, not just practice.
Correct.
Because I was just curious about the need for a super fancy NFL scoreboard, which is awesome. I'm not begrudging it at all, but it seems like if that's not being used for games, it's a missed opportunity. But that's great that it is. So my understanding is that the principal is funding through discretionary funds, but nobody's approached the school board for any contribution at all.
We're pursuing this with the school district as we speak.
Okay. Have you, as part of that pursual, are you in contact with Representative Geller?
We have spoken with Representative Geller, and we plan to have a follow-up discussion with him about this, as obviously he will need to bring it to the school board.
What was his initial reading? If you don't mind me
What?
asking.
I'm sorry?
What was his initial take on it?
Well, he's in support of it.
You know, we don't realize this about the school board. You want to? No, it's fine. But 85% of their budget goes to salaries. So they have no discretion money, which is why we literally have to raise money for teachers. The PTA funding is essential. I was out there and saw the new scoreboard. Congratulations. It only took how many years? 4? 2 years? Okay, 2 years, but we got it. And I think that when you see the bleachers and the shade structure, and, you know, like, we're finally going to have a place to really watch games like a regular high school. And I think that's the community benefit. But it's a good question to ask. As far as getting money from the school board, it's nearly impossible. And the fact that the PTA was able to raise the $23,000 with the parking lot, and I would encourage more events like that as we program the convention center to work with you overflow parking so that you guys can make more money to fund the school. Yes. And I would work with you on that initiative. So congratulations to Commissioner Fernandez for sponsoring this. And one thing, the final thing that I would add to our procurement team, and this has nothing to do with the shade structure. Recently, I was trying to get a trailer for the. I'm not throwing shade. No pun intended. You know, I was recently trying to get a trailer for the kiddie campus. And they had gone and gotten an estimate, and it was like $140,000 for this trailer so that they could spay and neuter the cats on site. And the estimate that I got from the city was like over $1 million. It was so ridiculous that it just ruined the whole idea. So if we had the potential to get a trailer for $140,000 and not the $1 million, I think as we see these, I think we need to literally call vendors and then just waive the bidding process and go with the vendors. Because if we could get 4 structures for the price of what's costing us one, we tried to get the shade structure for Canopy Park, and it came in at $400,000, and it was a quarter of the size. So we need to do better in the procurement process. I'm not blaming any of our directors, but there's something going on there. We're paying inflated prices, and when we don't have to, when we shouldn't have to.
May I just add one more thing before we discuss?
Sounds like you have support, so at your own risk.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm excited to share that it's Miami Beach Senior High's 100th anniversary, 2026.
Incredible. Thank you, ladies, for the work that you all put into the school. As a PTA father, I know that's what makes our schools in Miami Beach special is the parental involvement and things like that. So thank you for the efforts you take. I will caveat this with, is there potential risk that the school board comes back and says, you have to go through our procurement process, and then they come back and find a similarly inflated price of $300,000 or $400,000, and we essentially looked at a $100,000 budget allocation?
So reflecting back on the process we used with our procurement team for the scoreboard, we were able to utilize the vendor that was suggested because we were able to piggyback off of an approved contract. So if this vendor, and I've not seen the quote, I don't know anything about the vendor. If the vendor has a contract that our procurement department says is an agreement that we can piggyback off of, and if they are an approved vendor of MDCPS, it is quite possible, then I think we could potentially follow that same process.
Okay, then cross our fingers, hopefully we're able to follow that. Does somebody want to move the item?
I'll move it.
I'll third.
I think the item is to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to consider funding a shade structure at Miami Beach Senior High School in the amount of $120,000 to be considered during the FY26 budget process. And we'll show, it was a tie, I don't know. We'll show Commissioner Bott this time. Commissioner Bott and Commissioner Suarez, all in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, anyone that wants to join us, a co-sponsor, they're welcome to. This is, it's, as Commissioner Rosen says, I'm sponsoring it, but like, this is all of us, all of you. And I know,
Sign me up.
yeah, there you go.
Is this, is this allocation for 2025 or 2026?
Well, it'll have to go through the
26.
budget process, yeah.
So we'll show Commissioner Bott, Kristen Rosen Gonzalez,
And I think already I'm a
and
sponsor.
Commissioner Suarez, and yes, Commissioner Magazine, you already are, as additional co-sponsors.
Gonzalez.
Suarez. Thank you.
Excellent,
Thank you.
excellent. So let's, continuing on the theme of our neighbors having perhaps better procurement processes than us, our friends from Sunset Isles, coming up and things like that. And I say that somewhat in jest, but,
Item 35.
NB 35.
MB 35, which is discuss FY26 budget prioritization for renovation of Sunset Islands Park and include resident options and feedback. NB 35.
We'll go on a more positive tone where we'll continue the theme of our neighbors and our stakeholders showing such incredible engagement of, you have this park there, but you've taken the extra step and laid out what these designs are, what the possible costs are, what the neighborhood through feedback through your HOA essentially dreams that this park could look like, and you have the designs and things like that. So let me turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My name's Julie Michael, and I'm a resident of Sunset Island 2. I'm also a VP on our HOA board.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing us. I'm Jessica Ezrati. I'm a resident of Sunset Island 1. I have 3 children that play around the islands. And yeah, we're ready to talk about the park. I think we have a slideshow as well. Yes.
Wonderful. So the park on Sunset Island 2 has been there since the island's inception at around 1930. Since 1930, there has been no major capital investments into this piece of property. And as the neighborhood has shifted over the last few years since kind of COVID, I moved in 2017 to Miami. The demographics of the islands have shifted to be much younger. There are children everywhere, babies. I have a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and we would really like the opportunity to improve the park and our neighborhood and just create a space for our neighborhood to enjoy and also be safe.
Yes, so we have some renderings that we put together for you guys to see and enjoy, hopefully. So we can go ahead to the next slide, and we'll highlight some of the things we're hoping to improve. Oh, it's me. I'm the one that goes to the next slide. This one, okay. So first and foremost, we would like an event field. Some of you have visited our park during our annual picnic and saw that it was muddy and not the best place to have an event. We love getting our neighbors together. The kids love to play in the green space right now, but they come home disgusting, full of mud from head to toe. I sometimes hose them off before they're allowed back into my house. So our first thing that we were asking for was a faux turf field. Here we've placed it in the middle of the park, but actually yesterday they were replacing some of our turf for us, which was wonderful, and we were very excited about it. But we saw that when they pulled up the old mud and they were putting down the new turf, that we could actually, like in this slide you can see, we need to maybe relocate two, possibly 3 trees that are there, which we actually love the trees because they already provide a lot of shade for us. But when they pulled up that old sod, we saw that we could easily work around the trees as well, which actually might even lower our budget because we could not relocate those trees. I have some pictures on my phone that I can show you if you want that worked around the trees. And it might even be like an interesting way to put the field in as well, because then you would have some benches that were under the trees. Next slide, me. Okay. And here you can see a rendering of what the play field and event lawn would look like. We also added a curb around it to protect from runoff, and the integrity of the field would remain. There's 4 beautiful benches around. Right now we only have 1 bench, so you have to run across the entire field to take a break. We have some, even though a lot of our residents are younger now, we do have some elderly residents that like to walk in the park and around the neighborhood, and it would be wonderful if they had a place to stop and take a break. Anything else you want to say about the field?
And the walking perimeter is new, correct?
Yes, we have a slide about that.
And which is great because, as I understand, your neighborhood doesn't have sidewalks, so you go up there and you drive through, you see families pushing strollers on the side of the road, people are going by, or even wanting to exercise. You don't have that safe designated area, so this would serve as that.
Exactly as you're saying. Here are some of those beautiful pathways, Julie.
We wanted to take advantage of the ability for people to walk through the park, and we will have a slide on that as well. But here you see them kind of interspersed amongst the trees, so they would have natural shade as well. We wanted to add in some play elements into the park that were non-obtrusive, beautifully integrated, and didn't create kind of a primary color, like giant eyesore for the neighbors adjoining next to the park. And we also wanted to keep things artistic in respect of Miami's commitment to having art in public places, as well as just our desire for a beautiful neighborhood.
Okay, so this shows the overview of where the pathway would go around the park, and you can also see there are some meandering paths through the park. Unfortunately, even though we live in a very safe place, there is a lot of traffic and we don't have sidewalks, as the commissioner already said. So we were looking for a place for the children to ride their bikes and for people to walk. And unfortunately, I don't even know if we should bring this up, but unfortunately there's been pets that have been struck recently by cars. So we're hoping to just have more safety in our neighborhood.
And does each island have their own individual park, or is this essentially serve as the centralized park for all the various islands?
This is the centralized park for Sunset Islands 1 and 2, which are connected. 3 and 4 do have their own smaller park that does exist for them.
In this slide, you can see a beautiful rendering of the pathways, how the interspersed play equipment will be hidden nicely, but under the beautiful shade trees that we already have. And then also we've added more landscaping around the perimeter, thank you, of the park to prevent illegal parking and to add another buffer for the children to not just run out to the street.
No, I mean, after coming to the annual picnic there, this is needed. We just launched Turf at Canopy Park, and it's just a complete game changer. John, do you want to kind of weigh in with where this process is going? And as I understand it, you privately took it upon yourselves to put together these designs and these plans. John, what would be the rough cost just for the design if we would have done that?
At least 25 to 50,000, depending on how far we went into it just for design.
So
And
point
this is
being,
a
thank you
conceptual
for
design.
taking that initiative and, all the efforts of your collective community. So John, what are your thoughts here?
So where we're at is one of the most difficult things that I do every year is trying to prioritize projects when it comes to budget, because what park project isn't exciting and amazing? So when they first came to us, this automatically goes into the fifth year as a new project, the fifth year of our capital plan. And then it would, now comes here to see if the committee and the commission want to reprioritize that. So currently, it's in our capital request, it's in year 5 of the capital plan, and we're here to talk about whether or not we want to prioritize that heavily this year.
Okay, and the total cost in the memo was around just under $1 million? And could this be multi-phased? So essentially, would we be able to do half of that this year and they actually get improvements this year and another half next year, or is this kind of a one or done?
Looking at the way that it's designed, it looks like it could be more easily phased than other projects. Phased.
We also had a slide, at the end that shows a revision to the budget because we looked at some of the hard costs and we had some budgeted out, and I just wanted to show you that too. So you can see that, as you were saying,
some private bids.
Yeah, exactly. As you were saying with the last, the school that just spoke, that we got better prices than you. Sorry. It's kind of small.
I love this. Our residents getting great prices. They're actually budgeting downwards. Saving. I love this theme that we see here today.
Yeah. So we also already had a survey procured. So if you're able to accept that survey of the park, we've done that as well. But you can see our bottom line is much less than the original amount, and this includes 15% contingencies, plus some other things that we think the city adds to their budget, like the art and public spaces, permitting, JOC, which we had to Google, but now we know what that is, and some other things. So that's at the bottom, so we added that in as well. And we have zeros in all the numbers where we realized that you guys put in things that we weren't really looking for, so we just zeroed that out.
Some questions? So you guys should have a side hustle of designing parks because it looks beautiful. And I'm very supportive of the idea of keeping the shade trees and laying the faux sod around it. I think it accomplishes all the goals and keeps the trees, which is something we all want. And the curly swings are fabulous. I haven't seen those before. So seriously, throw up an Instagram page and Parks Are Us. My question, and this may be more of a John and Public Works question, but my understanding is that you guys don't flood terribly, generally speaking.
We flood terribly.
You do flood terribly.
We had somebody literally kayak.
Okay, so I apologize, I was misinformed. So, but all the better. My wish would be that especially that event and field space is redone, because it seems like not that much will be excavated elsewhere, but that space becomes a cistern underneath to hold water, to siphon off water, whatever we can do for resiliency. I don't know if that adds to the cost, but I think it's a worthwhile investment. And I don't know who's the best person to address that, but I think it won't have any tangible impacts on the play value and the event space value, but it would have very tangible effects on resiliency issues.
I think that's a good idea, and we should definitely look into it. The only thing that I see that could affect is that I think a cistern has to be at the lowest point, and there's other parts of our islands that are low points already. So I don't know if you would have to build up a lot of the existing areas. But I think we should definitely
The islands are
look
actually
into
at a
it.
slant, and the gentleman who designed the islands built his house on the high point of the islands.
Of course he did.
Which is, yes. And so there's a side of the islands that is significantly lower. It's about 2 feet lower. Okay. So the park is in the middle. So whereas the streets do flood, and under torrential, like the rain bomb situation that we had 2 months ago, the park did, of course, flood at that point. However, under normal circumstances, I don't see, the park doesn't flood excessively in the same way that some of the other portions of the island do.
I would still encourage a conversation with the relevant departments, because there's no normal anymore, right? Like, we never used to get flooding other than during king tides or hurricane season. Now we get rain bombs like every 3 weeks, it seems like. So whatever we can do to add resilience measures someplace in the park as you're going through renovations, I would really encourage us to take the time to explore the best way to do. If it's not a cistern, I mean, I'm clearly not an expert in aquatic engineering of any sort, but if it's not a cistern, but it's, you know, pipes connecting in a different way to different outfalls, whatever, let's maximize the opportunity to look ahead to the future.
Makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Of course, I'm supportive of a park. I don't think anybody votes against parks. But you do beg an important question, Commissioner Bob, because as we're building parks, and we're doing this constantly, we're not looking at the resiliency portion of it. And I know that Canopy Park was all about building these cisterns. And I don't know that we're doing that. We haven't done that yet, have we, John?
Bayshore Park has a heavy resiliency component to it with the lake that's being built there. And some of our parks, they are a little lower because it's the kind of the live with water. If you're going to want something to flood or hold water, get it off the streets, get it into the park, which isn't always the best thing for the neighbors who want to quickly use the park, but it moves the water. So I guess my short answer, without getting into engineering, which I'm not, is we do have resiliency efforts within our parks. We could expand upon those, of course, but we do have them.
So, you know, it works both ways. If you want to park quickly, then the resiliency might not be there, because once we do it, I mean, you know, so, but to at least explore it prior and find out the vendor who did it in Canopy Park, which is a much smaller project than, you know, Bayshore Park. And, you know, I don't think it would be a bad expense if we did do it, because so Sunset had their project done about 10 years ago, and they're flooding right now. And we actually had a meeting about it yesterday, and what we decided to do was camera all the pipes and see, because it can't not be working. It probably has a blockage somewhere. So we're working toward the resiliency, but that's a really good idea. But it might hold things up. So it's really, you know, which one do you want? Do you want the drainage underneath, or do you want the park? Unless we could do it quickly. I mean, in an ideal world, we would do both quickly.
Yeah, Chair, if I may, and speaking to Kristen, I was, Kristen Gonzalez's meeting, I was at that one. We had about a half a dozen members, HOA. Yes, thank you, sorry. That members that of the Sunset Islands too, you know, speaking about the flooding, and we had discussions about their neighborhood improvement project. I know Public Works was in attendance, and my understanding is the space is not technically designated as a park. It's a open space, green space right now, and
It was changed to a park about 2 years, 3 years ago, I think.
Yes, I don't have the resolution with me. We always served it as a park, but it officially became a park about 3 years ago when the city was talking about vacant properties.
They were talking about selling it.
Yeah, maybe if Public Works can talk, because I know that there's some discussion of the possibility of that quarter or third of the back end perhaps being used in a future for a stormwater pump.
Certainly need to include Public Works on any conversation.
Right, so all of that, I would just be wary just to keep that in mind, that there was a potential for down the line to help with the severe flooding on the island, that green space would have been partially utilized in some manner towards that. So I don't know how that would have to be fitted in. So that there may be something to think about, because I think the design showed the whole space being utilized, but I think maybe in conjunction discussion with Public Works to ensure that there's space made available for that future location.
Yes, definitely. We do leave a lot of open space on the park because we love that our park is big and wide and open. We're just trying to utilize the space in the best way, but we understand that there potentially could be a pump station or something installed
down the road.
And I'm Gina Ross. I live on Sunset One. I just want to reiterate 2 points. One is what Commissioner Magazine said. The safety issue is huge. We have a lot of one-way streets. We have a ton of construction. The trucks go the wrong way on the one-way streets. There are no sidewalks. We just had a dog killed. But if you come to our island during the day, you never know if there's a truck coming down, you know, and they speed. We just got some speed bumps put in Sunset 1. We don't have them on Sunset 2. But the safety issue is a big issue. So having a walkway where you can have babies and you can have people walking dogs and people walking the island and around the park is really important for the safety issue. The second thing is, you all know about the traffic issues around Alton Road and North Bay Road. A lot of these young families are landlocked. They can't take their kids to other parks. There's nothing around the area, and they don't want to leave because they don't know how long it's going to take them to get back. So that's another area. This is a safe way for them to be able to use this beautiful space, but it's not usable. What's happened over the years is that people who have had extra trees have planted them in the middle of the park. So the kids can't play field sports because there's trees are in the middle. It's a gorgeous space, but it's not really user-friendly for all these families. So that's why we're asking for this.
Excellent. Job's not, I think you're going to have a lot of support here, but your job's not over. As we go through the budget process, I encourage you to come back and continue putting yourself front and center to make sure that we prioritize this for this agenda cycle.
Chair, if that's...
Yeah, real quick, do you need anything legislatively for us to accept essentially their surveys or any of the type of work that that they've done so we don't have to replicate?
Oh, no, I can work with them.
Excellent, excellent.
If I may, I think the question is normally, as we've talked about in the past, when there's a new CIP project being added, it gets added in the 5th year. And if that's in hearing the discussion here, is the recommendation going to be favorable for this completely new capital project to be added to our CIP, which would be added in the 5th year, which this committee has recommended before, or to be pushed to the front of the list and be considered as part of the 26 budget process?
I believe it's the latter, to prioritize this for the 26 project.
Okay, so then hearing that, then it would return to commission with a favorable recommendation to fund a new capital project park on Sunset Island 2 and to be considered as part of the 26 budget process. So I need a motion and a second.
I'll second.
I think I had Chair Magazine, I think. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work and the initiatives. You made our jobs infinitely easier. And John, thank you for working so intimately with them. So, thanks.
Thank you all.
Let's continue on the neighborhood themes. I know we have some great community members here for NB 31 and 32, the special taxing and security districts.
Okay. Thank you. Let me read them in. MB 31, discuss potential creation of a special taxing district to fund the implementation of security features in the Bayshore and North Bay Road neighborhoods. MB 31. MB 32, discuss the potential creation of special taxing district to fund the implementation of guard gates and or implementation of other security features in Venetian Islands. MB 32.
And Adam and Joanna, I like if the public takes their time out of their day to come here. I'll always accept public comments, so to the extent that you want to come up, speak publicly, you don't have to, but you're more than welcome to.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Excuse me, Commissioners. Creation of the new special taxing districts at Bayshore, North Bay Road, and Venetian Island neighborhoods with guard gates and additional security features. Facilities currently oversees 4 special taxing districts: Ellison Island, Biscayne Bay, Biscayne Point, and Normandy Shores. Services at each location are based upon the residents' requirements. Our own city attorney office has been leading the effort in supporting these areas, and we know to date that a survey has been completed for North Bay, where they did receive more than 10% of the residents responding favorably. So the next step for them is to move toward a petition package and potentially an ordinance submission.
No? Okay.
He did it.
Okay, yeah.
Want to weigh in?
Yeah, this is my item, thank you. We've had numerous complaints about car thefts, a lot of security issues. I believe, I was at an event on North Bay Road, and one of the people that was with us had his car stolen while I was there. I think, Commissioner, you were there as well. it's a concern, and it's a magnet for bad actors to basically take advantage of this neighborhood, lower, middle, and upper North Bay Road. We've had a discussion I believe at neighborhoods, overwhelming resident input and support. You know, the idea is to give an enhanced security to the area. You know, as elected officials, we're expected to be like Houdini, right? And just come up with all these ideas to solve crime, public safety, traffic, and we try our best. You know, we obviously try to lean on the police to do their job effectively and in a more proactive manner. But that's been a challenge, and I think giving the residents of a neighborhood that has where the crime has significantly increased, at least in car thefts and burglaries, give them a democratic process to decide if they want to go through with this, I think is the right thing. I mean, Miami-Dade has over 1,000 of these special taxing districts. And so it's not up to us to decide that. It's really up to the residents of the special taxing district and if they want to approve it or not. And so us here, myself, we're just here to facilitate the process.
Yeah, and where I stand, I'm cognizant we've had items on for the past year, even going further, on some very significant issues that have occurred in these areas, North Bay Road, Venetian Islands. Somebody's going to get killed. Truly, they are. People have been either robbed at gunpoint in their homes, or people's security have pulled guns on intruders, and this is a recurring theme. So I can't commit to what that infrastructure will look like. Me specifically, I think I'd prefer to go the angle of the lower hanging fruit first, where we get roving security crews that are self-funded through this taxing district, technology enhancements and things like that. I think the whether you're talking about gates or things like that, that's a multi-year process and probably a more prolonged discussion. But I think this is to just facilitate the process of getting those special taxing districts up, running, and moving if the neighbors and those communities want so. I think we're just here to help facilitate that. Right. Adam, time? Yeah. Please.
Do I have a time limit or?
Reasonable.
Reasonable, okay.
Yes.
I can talk. I try to be. My name is Adam Kravitz. I live on 2982 Alton Road, and that address actually has a particular resonance to this proposal, which quite honestly would be nice if I was 100% sure what the actual proposal was. There has been mention of guard gates, and those guard gates would effectively render the stretch of Alton Road from 29th or 27th north, although Lower Alton Road, it's not even, Old Alton Road, meaning it's not even clear how that would be affected. The people who will be affected by these gates, meaning those of us on the outside, literally unable to access our own driveways, would seem to me to make this plan a non-starter. And any survey conducted by the city of Miami Beach that fails to take in the traffic effect or the accessibility effect on those houses and the diminution of value, maybe to nothing, of those houses if we can't actually access them from certain directions, would seem to me to be incredibly legally suspect. I note that in the Miami-Dade Code, the creation of special districts requires, for gating, a traffic study. And this is not a traffic study, and this I think is kind of my point, so I'm gonna circle back. The process of creating a special district should come from the neighborhood. It's supposed to be a neighborhood process where the neighborhood puts together a plan, as we just saw, using their own money and their own ideas, and then presents that plan to the commission and the county commission to approve it. Okay, what we have here is city resources, my tax dollars, being spent on a plan that is detrimental to my neighborhood without any input whatsoever. I've contacted the city attorney by email, on an email, and said, this is a residents' right to know item. Certainly it affects me, and I get no response. Okay? So the issue is first of all, whether the affected residents are being surveyed and whether they know. The city is not supposed to conduct a traffic study. The neighborhood is supposed to conduct the traffic study. And if that traffic study is suspect or doesn't show that the gate should be put up, then the commission should not be voting for that. But it's not for the city to come up and city staff to conduct surveys and city staff to spend city money to create a special taxing district for a select group of residents. I also want to question the data, okay, because I was at the police commission meeting, and you know, the anecdotal evidence of a particular car theft is absurd. Are you saying that on Alton Road we don't have car thefts? Are you saying that on Alton Road we don't have break-ins? That the crime magically goes from Bayshore to North Bay and back again without jumping over our street? It simply doesn't make sense. In fact, at the police meeting, and actually the assistant deputy is here, I spoke with him yesterday, and we were talking about the high-end car thefts, most of which occur because people leave their fobs in their cars. And I was actually incredulous at this. We had a long discussion about it. And the police committee was told unequivocally that this is the main problem. Not that we should victim blame here, but that this is actually a problem. But what he was also very clear in the mapping of those thefts show is that it's not a lower North Bay Road problem. This is simply not true. Out of the 59 dots on the map, 4 of them were on lower North Bay Road. It's a citywide problem. In fact, it's a countywide problem. So cars get stolen on Alton Road, cars get stolen in Bayshore, cars get stolen in Lakeview. In fact, the sting operation took place on Pine Tree and 50th. So to say that the city should be spending resources on a very well-off street that has for 20 years, 30 years, tried to block itself off, okay, and been defeated at every turn, because in reality, it should be characterized as an alternate route and a through street, is again, ridiculous. There's one other thing.
Adam, if I could just respond there. From my point of view, what I know my intent is to actually prevent more city resources from being expended there. And it's actually, I don't mean to misquote this, but pushing the burden onto those residents, because if they want enhanced security, instead of us having police that are just stationed there 24/7 because of the large degree of high-profile incidents there, kind of shifting that financial burden onto the residents. Trust me, I get plenty of complaints from the residents there. They go, look at my tax bill. How do we not have police here 24/7? And I don't have a good answer for that as well. So I don't think that we are expending significant city resources on putting this together. In fact, it was the neighbors that came to us and said, what can we do about this? You know, here are all these incidents that are happening. And we said the best way to go about this is to essentially take initiative on yourselves. And we are just, this isn't a vote for what that area is going to look like, whether there's going to be guard gates or not. This is essentially just helping facilitate the residents potentially voting for their own self-assessed district.
And if I can follow up on that, and look, Adam, this is not me trying to placate a couple wealthy owners on there. I haven't taken a dollar from developers when I campaign. I funded my own campaign. I'm not asking for money or favors. These are residents that have come to me for help, and we're trying to do something. And if there is a democratic process for them to vote, for them to have additional security measures, I'm not going to get in the way of that. I'm going to do my job as an elected official to help them. Now, I'd love to sit down with you and discuss with you on a map on how this isn't going to really affect you, okay, even if there are guard gates. I think it's going to make everyone's situation much better, and and more eyes on the street, I don't see why that would be a problem.
Well, first of all, can I address that? Because you brought up some
I just have a
points.
question.
While it's fresh. First of all,
Well,
democratic
Adam,
process. Yeah.
if I may, just have a question. Because I wanted to understand the proposal that's before the committee as it relates to North Bay Road. The proposal before the committee, is it to put guard gates for North Bay Road, or is it to establish a security guard taxing district?
It's what the residents want over there. It's not up to us. It's gonna be what the HOA decides.
Understood, but I think that that's where we as a governing body, because a lot of these roads, if you're telling me it's a special taxing district to self-fund roving security guards, I'm open to that. And I think that that's something that causes a lesser of an impact. If we're talking about a special taxing district that closes the area right abutting Alton Road, that's a very different type of impact that's going to have a consequential impact on Alton Road, especially on Alton Road, where to the east you're landlocked with the golf course. And so I think it's something just to consider, because I think we have a responsibility to determine, okay, what is it that we're going to ultimately send to the residents of that area to ballot? Is it going to be a special taxing district for security guards, or is it going to be a special taxing district for gates?
So thank you, Commissioner. It's really up to the residents in the area what they want to push forward, because ultimately they're gonna be the ones required to get a petition and start the process. It's not necessarily me that's gonna go around collecting signatures. It's gonna be a sort of a champion in the neighborhood. It's gonna also depend on it's an option. It's an option. Either they want roving security, if they want guard gates, or all of the above. I also want to let you know that I have a town hall for Bayshore, North Bay Road, and Venetian Islands, I think on May 13th and 14th, where I've invited everyone to come out. And I want to hear the discussion and see where it lands. This is going to be a sort of a multi-year process. This is not even anywhere near being cooked.
I'll just give you my feedback, just having seen these go through the county multiple times. From my perspective, the county has always been, and maybe things have changed, but the county has traditionally been very sensitive about special taxing districts that displays the flow of traffic, and which is the unintended consequence here if it's a guard gate special taxing district. And so I just want to be very transparent as it relates to this area. It's a very unique circumstance here. You're on one side you have the bay, on the other side you have the golf course, so you really don't have a grid. So as it relates to North Bay Road, it's going to be hard for me to support anything that relates to a gate. I will be very open-minded and very supportive if the residents want to self-assess for security guards. That's different. But as it relates to gates, I just want to be clear on where I stand on that.
It's good to know. And what I'm saying is I want to let the process move forward and allow the residents to speak. It's a sunshine meeting. Obviously, I invite everyone to come and hear everyone out. So.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. Listen, I'm going to hear what everybody says, but I said this at the previous meeting as well, where I think we take care of the low-hanging fruit. If the residents, these neighborhoods do vote to self-assess, we start with enhanced technology, we start with roving security guards, but when we start getting to diverting flows of traffic through major thoroughfares, whether it be here, Pine Tree Drive, that's not something I'm co-signing. At the moment.
But let me say one thing that I wanted to address, because and what I'm a little bit incredulous about, Commissioner Suarez, with all due respect, is you say it's up to the residents, yet I hear that you seem unwilling or unable to say what the plan actually is. Yet there was a survey taken that 10% approved. Who took the survey?
Hold on. If I may clarify through the chair, as a very first step for any community to establish themselves as a special taxing district, they have to get a letter of intent. They need to find at least 10% of the residents to be, they want to participate in this. So this survey came directly from the residents. And so the next step is to establish a petition package.
And what did they
Adam,
actually say?
And Adam, if I can answer your question, like when I originally proposed this, I gave the full option set. I mean, I showed where if they did want to use guard gates, this is where it would be. And I also said you don't have to do that. You can also have just roving security, or you can have all of the above. And so it's, I'm not trying to say only do roving security guards and then do a gotcha at the last minute saying, oh, we can also do guard gates. I kind of want to just give the full options and hear what the community have to say. And again, this is like a long process. This is why you're here. This is why you've heard about it. There's not going to be a decision made anytime soon. And so I'm here. Look, I'm interested. Obviously, you're very much against it. I understand. There's a lot of people who are very much in favor of it.
Anywhere off of North Bay Road?
In favor of what? Gates or the actual, sorry.
A lot of people are any sort of relief. There's a lot of people who are asking for real relief in the neighborhood, and it's not just obviously North Bay Road. I also have one for Venetian Islands, and Bayshore, and so it really depends on what the community wants. And listen, if there's not support up here for it, then that's fine. I can only do what I can do. But like I said, I mean, I don't think the discussion ends here. I think we just continue it along. There's going to be many steps to this. And look, I generally want to hear what people have to say.
Okay, let me just address the few points.
And Mr. Chairman,
I'd
like to weigh in a moment.
Please.
Yeah. So just to be clear, the neighborhood that has made the most progress toward the creation of a district is I think Upper North Bay Road. I don't think it's this particular neighborhood, and that's the group that has submitted 10%.
It's at Middle North Bay Road.
Middle North Bay Road is in the 40s. So that's the neighborhood that has submitted the initial letter of intent to the county.
Thank you.
And by the way, no help to me. I saw that email come in. I was like, oh wow, okay, they already started. So
just to be clear, I represent as president of the Walton Road Homeowners Association, I represent all of Walton Road. A lot of the people on Walton that have objected. I mean, it goes back to what I wanted to address about Commissioner Suarez's comment. He says democracy, but it's what's the voting universe, okay? If the voting universe is only people on North Bay Road, I get on the special tax. I'm sorry, I get on the special taxing district, but what I don't get is that if the creation of gates ultimately results in a taking of a value of the property, and I'm a lawyer, okay, then that should just be a no-go. To sit there and say, because the residents of North Bay Road want something or petition for it in a special taxing district, I mean, they can petition for whatever they want.
And there's going to be a democratic process for that, right? So yes, it is the residents of North Bay Road that are going to vote for their self-taxing district, but any type of thing that is put forward has to go back to our full commission, which is of course going to, so I don't want to put the cart before the horse. This is just to establish these self-taxing districts. We're in no way co-signing for essentially the infrastructure that comes along with that. Let me hand this over to my colleagues. Commissioner Bott, do you want to say anything? Then Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez.
Go ahead. So here's what I think, and I understand your concerns because I also live on Walton Road. I think that what we haven't done yet is leverage technology for those neighborhoods. And what does that mean? I actually have an item coming forward because you said it best. We're thinking roving security guards, but that's not what we need to do here. We need to put in license plate readers like they have on the Venetians. We need to install cameras. We need to connect those cameras to the real-time crime center. And that's what we need to offer those neighborhoods. And I'm working on an item right now that I would like everybody to co-sponsor, because if we do this, we could do this quickly, efficiently, cheaply, and frankly, solve a lot of the problems, because we can actually program those LPRs. Right now in the city, we have 32 license plate readers. Did you know that the Venetian Islands, they organize themselves? Just listen to this. 12 of our LPRs connected to the Real-Time Crime Center happen to come from the Venetian Islands. So if we roll these out in all of these neighborhoods, and I would like everybody to work on this with me, if we roll out the LPRs and we program them so that when they see somebody kind of cruising a neighborhood, they get an alarm, we can solve a lot of these crime issues using technologies, using cameras, leveraging the Real-Time Crime Center, because first of all, the closure is controversial and is years away, right? And so I would like to solve this problem without, we're saying, okay, let's have roving security guards. Well, we can do much better than that. We have tremendous technology that we are not leveraging, and I have a plan. It's called my security and safety plan. It's true. Kristen's security and safety plan. And I think that we can eliminate a lot of this by being forward thinking instead of just saying, we need a roving security guard, which is not what we need when we can actually use. And some neighborhoods, some single family neighborhoods might find this creepy to install cameras and LPRs, but they're asking for this and we can do it. And I think that as a team, we can do it efficiently, cheaply, and I think that's what we need to pitch the neighborhoods, and that's what I'm going to pitch. That's what I'm sponsoring right now with my legislative hold. Rick.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that's actually what was mentioned as part of this. I specifically said enhanced technology and roving security. So, so Commissioner Mott, and then Commissioner Suarez.
Assistant Chief Morgallo, can I put you on the spot for a sec?
I'm sorry,
probably-
I threw him under the bus.
No. I mean, it's a conversation we've been having for months. And I apologize if I got your title wrong, because you know how I am with titles. Your Royal Highness Morgallo.
No, I'm a humble servant of the city of Miami Beach. Assistant Chief Daniel Morgallo on behalf of the police department.
So, this is, what's before us today is a broader conversation about two things. One is traffic control and mitigation, part of which is exacerbated by the unholy construction at 395 and all the chaos that has now turned all of Miami Beach into a through route for people going north and south. I'm going to put that aside for now. The other thing that we've been hearing since we've all been elected and consistently is that car thefts are at an all-time high. They're getting lower. What my understanding is, and I want to ask the specific question in a minute, but I do want to get this entire thread onto the record. My understanding is that car thefts have decreased significantly over the last year and some months with a campaign put forth by the Miami Beach Police Department about locking your vehicles, locking your homes, not leaving your fobs in, especially if you have a late model car where the little side view mirrors fold in, the little ears as I call them, the highly technical term, fold in or don't, depending on where your key fob is or whether your your car is locked or not. Can you speak to that point specifically? And then I have a follow-up question.
So I'm not 100% familiar with the comparison of where our numbers are now to previous numbers. We did look at auto thefts most recently based on a public records request that the Kravitz folks put in. And we went all the way back to December of 2023, focusing specifically on the sentiment related to the high-end vehicle thefts. And to understand how that separates from our overall auto thefts, the biggest difference with those is that that's part of an organized ring of thieves. It is not a Miami Beach problem. It is not a Miami-Dade problem. It is a Miami, Tri-County area, Florida, national problem. And these groups, what we found through all the different investigations is they communicate through Telegram and other illicit means, and the brokers put out requests for certain high-end vehicles, and then young, mostly juveniles, will go out and another stolen vehicle looking to steal a vehicle. Miami Beach, because of the prevalence of these high-end vehicles in our city, is one of the locations that they come to take cars. So isolating those specific type of vehicles related to that broader type of crime, we found 59 high-end auto thefts going back to December of 2023, of which 52 of them had key fobs left inside the vehicle. So what we embarked on over the course of probably the last year, is public service messaging, asking people to remove their key fobs out of the vehicle. We just completed an extensive operation called Operation Tourniquet, specifically addressing that, both with uniform patrols, undercover officers, and we conducted stings within the Mid-Beach area, where we actually put out a high-end vehicle and conducted a surveillance on that vehicle. And at one point, a group of individuals tried to steal that vehicle. Long story short, since we did that sting, we haven't had another high-end vehicle theft until last night, where there was an attempt, and they were unsuccessful stealing that vehicle because the car was locked and the keys were not.
The sting was on Pine Tree?
The sting was on, I believe, the 5700 block of Pine Tree is where we ended up doing that sting. But we're moving vehicles, and we're doing that throughout the city. And the message that it sent within that illicit group, where they communicate based on the lack of additional attempts until last night, is Miami Beach is actually proactively going out and trying to prevent this. And we're one of the agencies, only agencies, that's going out and trying to proactively prevent this.
So my follow-up to that, thank you for that very useful information. And no one is trying to victim blame at all, but you said 52 out of the 57? 52 out of the 59?
52 out of 59, 88.14% had
I mean,
keys inside.
it's just a change in behavior, right? It's you know, you might be coming from someplace where you don't have to lock your keys, but here you do. So this is not laying this at the feet of the people who have gotten their property stolen. That's not the thing. But as we educate and learn and share, that's great to know. The other question is, of those 59, how dispersed are those locations? You had dots. I think you said there were 4
Right.
in this area. So where are
So,
the other 50 plus?
all throughout the city, but primarily the concentration is in the Mid-Beach area. So north of Dade Boulevard, south of 63rd Street, there are some isolated ones on Parkview Island, and I'm sorry, not Parkview Island, Stillwater Island in North Beach, some other areas in North Beach. But primarily, they try to stay in that Mid-Beach area because it provides them quick access to egress off the beach, either through the Tuttle, the Venetian, or another causeway.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, again, on the record, I am very pro making everybody feel safe and sound in their neighborhoods, in their homes, with their families. I am very concerned about the traffic issues. I've seen what happens on certain streets, particularly North Bay, at certain times of day. It's absurd. I am very concerned about this notion. If residents come to us and say, we want to do this, this is us organizing like the folks at the park just did. We have a plan, we have a buy-in from the majority of our community, and we want to fund it, and then we go through the process. So I'm not going to stand in the way of that. I am concerned with this notion of let's, you know, sort of privatize a lot of our neighborhoods, because I think there are tremendous unintended consequences on what happens to the people who are just beyond the borders. What happens to neighborhoods, for instance, like Bayshore, which I know we're going to talk about next, that are more mixed in income than perhaps some of the other neighborhoods that we're talking about, where people can't necessarily afford an extra self-taxing fee. I mean, it's already an incredibly expensive place to live, Miami Beach. And so, you know, but that's for the neighborhood to hammer out amongst themselves. But I do worry about anybody who's living beyond the borders of whatever neighborhood is privatized now gets traffic pushed onto their street. So we're not solving the problem, we're just moving it. And second of all, while those homes and possessions might be rendered safer because it's harder for the bad guys to get there, the perimeter outside of that neighborhood now is receiving the brunt. So I worry about, and I'm not saying no to something that residents want to have if they come to us with a plan, but just for us to say, let's do this and be, you know, pushing this, it seems like we're pushing this onto neighborhoods without really concrete ideas of how to do this efficiently and equitably is concerning to me. So solutions, 1,000%. I'm not sure these are the right solutions, and frankly, we haven't heard what the solutions are yet. I'm very interested to learn more about what my colleague Kristen Rosen-Gonzalez is doing, leveraging technology, because that is fast, it's equitable, it serves everybody, it ties into a real-time crime scene. We've got a drone that can be up in the air in 2 seconds at that. So I think that sounds extremely promising for a lot of the issues. It won't solve traffic, but that's a different conversation. So that's where I stand on this at this time.
Appreciate it. And Mr. City Attorney, does it make sense to actually have the name of this be to fund the implementation of enhanced security measures in these areas? Because I don't think we've essentially drawn up what it'll look like. Does that make sense to you, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think we put that in there in the event that it was gonna have guard gates.
And Mr. Chairman, for now, this is a discussion item. So it's going to depend on what each neighborhood proposes. And in fact, the county responded this morning to the Middle North Bay Road residents to ask, are you asking for roving security or guard gates? So it's really going to depend on each neighborhood.
Right, and that's why I have the town hall set, and where I invite everyone to really listen in, and it's widely advertised, and I want to hear if they're okay with just a roving security guard, it's fine. And look, I'm going to be supportive of Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez's item to be put technology, but I want to make sure that we all understand that's more of a reactive issue. I know we have a real-time crime center, but we've got a lot of area in Miami Beach to cover. It's going to be, it's going to be a stretch to say that if we see an immediate vehicle coming on North Bay Road, we're going to immediately fly a drone in the air and follow them. I don't think that's, I don't know if that's possible. But it certainly does help with solving crimes. I think that's what most of the cameras in Miami Beach do help with. But as far as being proactive and on the boots, sort of on the ground 24/7, I think that's what residents want in addition to whatever enhanced security we can provide. So another thing is, well, I think Commissioner Bott mentioned that, you don't want to stand in the way of a resident-led initiative. A lot of the residents didn't even know that this process exists, and that's sort of why I opened this this process for everyone. When I got the letter for Middle North Bay Road, I don't know who set that up. I don't know who started that. I'm glad that someone took the initiative, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be my responsibility to go door to door and get these petitions. It's just my responsibility to let everyone know that this process does exist and it's available to the neighborhoods that want it. And ultimately, it's going to be up to us to decide if we want to approve that that initiative that they're putting forward. And so, like I said, this is going to be a long sort of discussion on it, and anything that helps will be greatly appreciated to these neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think this, let's wrap this up. This was a good discussion. It's going to be ongoing. I appreciate your input. Welcome you to this town hall because this is going to be a comprehensive decision made for the entire community. So I want to let you know you have a voice at the table.
Well, I just, can I finish up? I'll be quick, and thank you for the time, really. The first thing is, yes, I totally think, I want to thank Commissioner Bott because I think you nailed it right on the head with the privatization of neighborhoods, which is something that we should totally the commission as a whole should not be supporting. Okay, it's one thing for residents to agitate for things. I agitate that I shouldn't have to pay any taxes at all. But that's not how we build a society. I also want to say that I think Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's idea is a great idea, and that's the point. I mean, the point is, you know, I did address license plate readers, but license plate readers in the hands of a privatized security company is one thing. License plate readers that are in the hands of the Miami Beach Police and you know, that can access your data from the DMV and stuff, okay, is another. And if it's a citywide initiative or a wide citywide initiative, then Alton Road is not going to get overlooked, okay? You're going to say, how do we solve traffic holistically? How do we solve crime holistically? It's not if we protect 4 houses on North Bay Road and 4 car thefts on North Bay Road, they're just going to go on Alton Road and take the cars, or they're going to go into Lakeside and take the cars. So it's really, or Lakeview, sorry, and take the cars. So it's not, you know, I think that what you're talking about is involving the whole city and having the police come up with plans that protect the whole city, or at least clear, you know, wide neighborhoods. And as far as town halls, this is exactly the point. If the residents want to come up with something, maybe I'm wrong. Was anybody from Alton Road invited to the town hall?
It's a public meeting. It's a sunshine meeting.
Well, I think that, but there was no notification.
Some people get
It is a notice meeting.
How were they notified of the town hall?
The clerk notifies them.
How?
Email.
Yeah, I think just
Email
like
to whom? My point is,
To us citywide.
is that the neighbors that are affected by these proposals are not simply being intentionally excluded from the process. And to say that it's a democratic process when the people who are being affected are not being included in that process, I think is quite.
I can tell you right now
quite a
that
violation.
I can tell you right now that nothing's intentional. I'm not trying to intentionally leave out anyone in this process, okay? I mean, I'm going to be advertising on my social media. I pay for my own social media to be boosted across the city. It's nothing, I'm not trying to say like, oh, let's forget about the Alton Road residents so that they don't show up and make a thing. Look, ultimately, this is going to, you know, I want to hear a discussion from these neighborhoods. Alton Road is more than welcome to join. I think Alton Road is going to greatly benefit from this. So, if this initiative moves forward, I don't certainly see the problem. But to accuse me of intentionally leaving everyone out, I mean, that's certainly not the case.
So would you be amenable to use it too? Because, you know, if we have to, you know, I actually have a residents association, right? So when we have to have a meeting, we have to find a place for the meeting. We have to get in touch with everybody. The city has resources like the GIS. You know, you can mail postcards to everybody on Alton Road. So maybe you could have a town hall for Alton Road to discuss these items.
Wouldn't it seem prudent to just have it at the same town hall meeting that everyone can speak at?
Because they weren't invited. We didn't get the postcards. We didn't get the emails.
Well, it's on, well,
That's why. And now it's next week.
Others people got it, but we didn't.
Okay.
We had to find out from other people.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let us work on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, being better at advertising this. So, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Chair, we're just, is this item to be retained? Is it going back to commission? What's the action? Or is there an action?
I think this was a discussion item, and we got feedback. We have next steps where we're going to have a comprehensive Sunshine Town Hall. So this is an ongoing process.
So the item will be retained. So we'll show it just item heard and to return, or is it item heard and closed?
Let's hear it and retain it. Let's say 2 months from now, because this is certainly going to be an evolving process, and I don't want to box ourselves in after we have the town hall. I don't want to have more bureaucratic. We need to make some sort of motion. I want to keep this front and center because this is a very important item that a lot of people are paying close attention to, especially as we enter into the summer months.
Right, Chair. Okay, so we'll show the item heard and to return in July. Thank you.
Let's hear the parking holiday during slow months. Commissioner Fernandez, NB 16.
Call it in. NB 16, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee to consider implementing a parking holiday during slower months of the year, NB 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Fernandez, I'm sorry, Yelena.
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 Delena.
Yelena. Sorry, I thought we were hearing those items together, but it was just a discussion. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I would have come up with that one. I was here to listen
Per-
and to be able to kind of put things together.
Perfect.
I know there's a town hall.
Yep.
It would have been nice to kind of divide up the town hall, between different neighborhoods, just because I think the North Bay issue is very different than the Bay Shore one. But, I'm happy you guys are doing the town hall. We need to get info out and then collect feedback.
Yeah, and I think when we get to that point, we will have more specified town halls. We just had one at the golf course for Bay Shore for a number of items.
I mean, look, I was here to just collect information.
Appreciate it.
I'm going back. We're in the process of putting something together to kind of get.
Please speak into the microphone.
Of where everyone in Bay Shore is standing with this, because it did take us a little bit by surprise, to be all honest, when this item came up. But, I got info that I needed.
Please
today.
speak into the microphone.
To the 14th. We're sending out an email.
Sorry, if you could come to the mic, the online isn't be able to hear. Sorry. Yeah.
Do I need to give my name?
I think you're,
Okay. We're sending out the email about the town hall. We've done it once, we're doing it again. Like I said, it would be nice to just divide it up, because I do think North Bay is a little bit different than Bay Shore, and, and we're trying to put a process together to kind of get a feedback from within Bay Shore to see how people are feeling about it, but it kind of took us by surprise altogether,
Yeah,
too.
I have two town hall, one for Venetian, because that's gonna be very difficult, because there's technically 6 different islands, and then,
100%.
I didn't want, the way I was gonna structure it is gonna have, the hour for North Bay, and then a separate hour for, Bay Shore. And, because I can't do 3
No.
town halls back to back.
I understand. I will point out, though, as far as Bay Shore is concerned, our prime issue is and will be always not the safety, but traffic. That I'm going to be flat out honest to you. I mean, we've had a meeting about 3 weeks ago with police and everyone, you were there, which I thought was very
Well,
successful.
our
and
main
good.
concern is also, I would say front and center is safety. Right? I mean, look, people.
I mean, I've lived over 20 years in that neighborhood, and I'm speaking as a resident of Bay Shore right now. Never felt unsafe. I've raised 4 children in the neighborhood. Our prime concern is truly traffic, and that's something we would like to see a focus on when it comes to Bay Shore. As far as this agenda, we're in the process of, publicizing your town hall, and then getting the feedback from within the residents within Bay Shore, like you said, because ultimately the residents are the ones that need to drive this if this is palatable.
it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. If people decide that it's not for their neighborhood, it's not for their neighborhood. So we
100%.
appreciate the ongoing
I
dialogue.
really appreciate it too, and I'll see you all on the 14th.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Fernandez, that was just brought to my attention that those items weren't called simultaneously, which was the intention. So let me kick that back over to you to continue on your parking hall.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm bringing forward this item to discuss a potential implementation of a parking discount program, what we've casually referred to on this agenda as a parking holiday, during the slower months of the year, of course. And the idea is pretty simple, but I believe that the impact could be significant. As residents, we've all experienced how quieter months bring fewer visitors and slower foot traffic for our small businesses. And this initiative is designed to give both residents and visitors a little extra incentive to support our local businesses, our restaurants, and service providers in the time of the year when they need it most, which is when we really aren't at our busiest. And what this item is proposing today is not necessarily a blanket fee waiver, clearly that would conflict with our parking bond covenants, but 2 creative, responsible alternatives that staff have worked on. One that offers a discount garage rate with proof of purchase, and another proposal that uses promotional codes that can be used through our parking apps. Both options aim to strike a balance, specifically between stimulating economic activity while also being fiscally responsible with our parking needs. I truly love this initiative because I believe it's pro-business while being pro-resident at the same time. And it sends a message that we're listening to the needs of businesses, especially during slower months when we need to be innovative and use whatever tools we have to support the needs of local businesses. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass it along to our parking director, who I think is making his debut in this committee, and pleasure to welcome you to the city of Miami Beach as well.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Well, I'm sorry, I have to recognize. No, I'm just kidding. Well, welcome to Miami Beach.
If I break some decorum, my apologies.
I kid. Welcome to Miami Beach. We look forward to having you on board and working hand in hand with you. So turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. William McDonald, Director of Parking for the City of Miami Beach. So the two options that the team has put together before my arrival, because I understand that they've been working on this for quite some time, the discounted parking rates to the municipal garages with proof of purchase. So we are currently exploring at enhancing the technology for the parking access revenue control systems that are in our garages. What the city is using right now is near end of life. And so with current technologies that are out there, there is a great opportunity to be able to allow each individual business to have their own validation account to validate the end user. So this proof of purchase program could be very easy to implement using current parking technologies. The apps, that would be a bit of I guess a higher branch to grab. Also, when we look at the flow of traffic through the municipalities, you really want to keep the curbs open for people that are popping in and popping back out, whereas you want the garages to be used for individuals that are parking and then going to have dinner or lunch for an hour and a half, and then maybe peruse some stores, whereas we want those curbs free for be able to pop in, pop out. I want to grab this from my local store and move on. But I think we can make some very strong recommendations. And then once we look at some of the advanced technologies that are out there, this will be some low-hanging fruit that we can perform very easily.
Short time. Commissioner.
Any of those will work. Maybe not Kristen so much.
Future one, too.
Once in future king, right? I love the idea, so well done. Here's a question for you, is tangentially related. When you use your resident app or parking discount in the garages, it is sometimes cumbersome and sometimes doesn't work properly. You know whereof I speak. So the technology that you're talking about, I know it's not directly related to this item, but it is kind of all together, because one of the reasons why a lot of residents don't like parking garages, but in addition to some people don't feel safe in them, they often smell yuckier than they should, is because it's a pain in the neck to try to use your resident parking app discount within the app. So is that something that's going to be addressed as well? Because it would be great. I love this idea of trying to prioritize curbside parking for errands, quick errands, versus if you're here for a few hours, whether you're a resident or somebody else going into the garage. I think that's a good direction.
So yes, so upon my arrival here, my team, everyone I've spoken with, has made it very, very clear that the commission has a passion for ensuring that the residents do receive discounted rates within our garages. So when we go through the process of procuring these advanced technologies, most, and I don't want to say all, but most of the new parks programs that parking access revenue control systems, most of those systems, they're more technology companies now rather than just gates. So the day of put in $1 gate go up and down are pretty much gone. All of these are technology companies. And so whether we want to integrate with our current technology like pay by phone and Park Mobile, whether the companies that come to the table for these garage systems have something new and improved that makes it very easy to register, or we can port over the information we already have so residents are already registered, that will be at the forefront of our decision-making process.
I mean, it would be terrific to build on this if, you know, this all sort of happens concurrently, of like our garages are cleaner, safer, better lit than ever. It's easier to use your parking app as a resident in the garage, and if you don't have a parking app, or if you're not a resident and you're coming from out of town, please use our garages because you get a deep discount.
So there could be some synergies between this, because I know there is another item for commission today regarding garage cleanliness. And so I understand that our current contract with the technologies that is in the garages ends roughly around the same time that the other item is coming before you. So I feel that there might be some synergies with some new technology rollouts, as well as some enhancements with cleanliness within our garage system coming very soon.
And if I might, one more question tangentially related. The conversation that we've been having on the commission about doing unified valet districts, I guess, is that something that would be sort of concurrent? Because that would be a really cool story, like come back to Miami Beach, parking is better, cheaper, easier than ever. And if that's all a thing that could happen sort of in the same bundle of information, that could be a tremendous story.
Yeah, so all systems, all park systems now have concurrent valet apps. So there are several different vendors out there. So obviously we would look at all options on the table. But regardless of who was chosen to be the new technology, all of these companies work with hotels and shopping malls that provide valet service, and even healthcare facilities. And so the valet lift would be, from a technology aspect, would be very easy to implement because they all integrate.
Parking is so tricky, and I really do think that having access to $5 valet citywide is key for our commercial districts to prosper. And when I see that our city vendors are charging $25 at the valets, it makes me wince. And we have to work with them and get their pricing down. And, you know, and we've been charging too much for too long. And I think if, you know, maybe $5 is too shocking for them and they're not going to want to take that, but at whose expense is that happening? So I think if we could, maybe $10, because $10 is palatable, right? I would like $5, yeah, it is a totally different from this item, and both are good items, but the word on the street, and I did some like Julio Camacho item the other day, wait, I just want to finish, okay, 20 seconds more. Especially within the Hispanic community, there's no parking. And the parking, when you do go, is too expensive. And we were talking about this like on the radio the other day. And that's the message that we need to change. So Commissioner Bott, you're right. We do need to, it's essential.
Thank you. For this issue at hand, Commissioner Suarez, I believe you moved that?
I move a favorable recommendation.
And on that, if I may, because the administration presented two options. And so I just want to go back to the director. What is your recommendation from the podium?
Our recommendation is option 1, Commissioner.
Option 1.
Yes, for the discounted parking rates in the garages.
Okay, I personally, you know, I believe that option 2, it maximizes our reach and flexibility, you know, because it's not limited only to the garages. And so I would love the feedback from the committee as to what the committee feels is a more reasonable approach. Does the committee feel more comfortable with option 1, limiting it to discount parking at municipal garages with a proof of purchase, or option 2, which is the discounted parking rate at all parking facilities, where the user would get a promotional code? I personally like option 2 better, because that way if the person wants to park on, you know, street side, or they want to park in a parking lot, or they want to park in a garage, they get the discount regardless.
This is a one-time thing for this summer?
Yes, I think it's something that we can do to help our businesses. Our businesses have been so cooperative and understanding with our government in our public purpose of restoring public safety during the month of March, especially with everything having to do with spring break. If we can do anything to assist them during the slower month when we have less tourism here, and encourage the locals to support our businesses, not just the locals from within the city of Miami Beach, but the locals from the greater community around Miami-Dade County to come
and enjoy discounted parking, it could help these small businesses when they might be struggling most.
And no, you've been in the weeds on this, given it's this summer, I'll be supportive of your desire to have option number 2. Commissioner Suarez, is that the option that you moved this for?
Yes.
Perfect.
If I can, just real quick, just to confirm with the department, is this something that you're able to have implemented for the summer?
That's what I was just talking to the team. What would the start date be considered for the summer?
I think my idea when I introduced this on the agenda, I want to make sure we have opportunities. You know, there's so much promotion that goes with Miami Spice, with Miami Spa Month, and having this parking holiday overlap with those months, especially like August. August is a very slow month, and my idea, my goal would be July, August. That's when we need this most. So that when there are other promotions out there like Miami Spice and like Miami Spa Month, we offer an extra incentive to locals from Miami-Dade County and within Miami Beach to come out and support our businesses.
Okay.
If I could just confirm with the department, make sure that that's doable?
It's doable.
There you go.
Excellent.
We love it. Awesome.
So we'll show this to return to commissioner with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to implement option 2 for a parking discount program during July and August of 2025. And that was by Commissioner Suarez and seconded by Commissioner Bott. All in favor?
Aye.
And I always like to say, I'm the sponsor of this item, but I think this is something, it's the city of Miami Beach that's doing it. It's not Alex Fernandez. Anyone that wants to be a part of this,
Yeah, I'll
this is our
co-sponsor.
collective effort.
I'll co-sponsor.
Me too, I'll co-sponsor.
Will, why don't you stay up here for Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's item? We're going to hear NB 19. Commissioner, do you want to go ahead and introduce that?
Let me read in MB 19, discussion regarding the parking department establishing its own cleaning crew, MB 19. And just to close up the last one, I'm sorry, I'll be adding Commissioner Bott, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, and Commissioner Magazine as co-sponsors on MB 16.
And me.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and Commissioner Suarez. Thank you.
And me too.
Okay, so facilities, anybody who has gone into our parking garages can easily say that they need some work, and the work is constant. So, you know, right now, facilities management is in charge of our parking garages. But the way that I envision this is like a special crew that is only focused on the parking garages. And it's really, I don't really want only a maintenance crew. I think it should be, I mean, cleaning. I want it to be cleaning and maintenance. What does it mean? It requires constant painting, constant pressure cleaning, almost daily. And I know that you guys you have a lot of funds. So I would rather take it out of your funding than take it out of the general fund, because really clean garages are successful garages, are safe garages, right? So from my perspective, if you want to see an immediate change, and you would be responsible for that crew. And that way it takes the onus off of facilities management, who has so much stuff to do. I mean, Lincoln Road, all these city buildings, and I know that everybody is understaffed and overworked, and really it shifts it to the parking department. And, you know, and I think that's a way to, number one, have greater accountability, cleaner garages, and I think we'll see real results. And I don't know exactly how you guys feel about this, but I think it's really important from an economic development perspective. I was in front of the garage at the Lowe's the other day, and as I was stepping out, there was a pool of urine that I had to step over. I don't want people to ever see that again. I want the hallways to be spick and span, the stairways to be clean as can be. And I do think that this is one of the ways that we can really attack this in a way that will create accountability.
Yeah, I love this, and I think to the Commissioner's point, it deserves a comprehensive overview for how we manage our parking garages. On the 17th Street garage here, we have Public Works and Facilities and Fleet taking ground floor primetime spots here. right? And our surface parking lot on P27, we have code compliance taking up 20, 25, 30 spots at sometimes, and that's prime parking that's supporting our businesses. I love the enthusiasm that you bring to the job, so I welcome you to come back to us with anything other than, well, this is the status quo, how it's always done. I want you to be open-ended and really take a leadership role here, because this is a critical department here. I know you come with some big experience, and that comes with big expectations. So I really look forward to having you front and center here, and very supportive of kind of having a complete reimagination of how our parking garages, especially those in some of our critical commercial corridors, are being managed. Yep.
If I may.
This is great.
So another great idea by another great colleague, and I'm super supportive, and I'd like to build on it if I may. So I'm going to toss this out to you. So there are garages around the country and around the world that are garages in our city are, for many people, the first point of entry to our city, right? Like you come over and you're not sure where you are, and you finally park and you're like, I'm in Miami Beach for the first time. So cool. So besides the sometimes appalling conditions that people find, there are garages all over the country and all over the world that make that first touch point part of the visitor experience. And I think we are missing a huge opportunity to do the same thing. So as soon as we get it cleaned up and figure out the schedule, who's controlling what, and where our facilities fleet is going to park so the best parking spots are available for residents and visitors. The next thing I would like us to focus on, I think it gets incorporated into this, is how do we beautify the garages? And I'm not talking about spending money to do it. I'm not talking about hiring consultants. I'm saying let's put it out to our school students. Let's put it out to our bids. Let's have the garages between Ocean Drive and Washington on 6th Street, wherever, I think it's just off of Washington. Let's have murals painted there that reflect the architecture. Let's have the same thing with the garage across the street from here. Like, let's pretend there's a beach there. We can do so many creative things. We would pay for the paint. We can spring for the paint. It's not that complicated, but put it out to the schools, put it out to residents, put it out to homeowner groups, anybody who's interested to do this kind of public policy or public community artwork and community building activities. Let's do it. Let's open it up. Let's have a call for artists, submit a plan, let's go. Really inexpensive, really fun, newsworthy. It brings art to public places in a way that is accessible to all, because how often do you get to make a piece of art that goes into a public place? And, how soon can we start? So I would like to add that to this item.
Yes, that's fine. We could for sure build on it. I just want 24/7 maintenance, garage to garage. There's a lot of work to be done to get them up to par. And, the thing is, we're hosting the party every day. Every day gets dirty all over again. And it's impossible to keep up with. So what are the next steps in order to realize
So I think from a facilities perspective, we're looking forward to working with Bill and moving forward on a
Great, yeah.
transition plan. So,
If I can, I think this is a quick item. It's just that would go back to commission, or recommend this be considered during the budget process. I know I've already been working with Will. We're in that budget process, and I think there's several enhancements that the parking department is considering related to cleanliness. But this would just support that to make this, the commission endorsing that. So I would see this to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to fund the parking department's cleaning crew, and to be considered during the 26 budget process. And I think there'll be a couple of them, a couple different options that the commission will have during the budget process to fund.
And by the way, they don't necessarily have to be full-time pension positions. You can go out and hire a cleaning and maintenance crew and say, get a contractor. I'm sure they'll be happy to do that.
We're looking at.
Is that what you're looking at?
We're looking at several options.
Because, I know that, adding more pension positions is not always the ideal for your budget. So, if you hired a cleaning crew every single day, then that one person is accountable. And I think it's possibly easier for you than having one of our directors be accountable. You've got the private sector, being accountable for this. As long as you don't go through as long as you get a good deal through our procurement system. So, okay. So, we're going to move it to the full commission with a.
Yes. Is it possible to actually loop in NB 20 on this, discuss lighting improvements at the 17th Street garage?
I think they're separate, but we can hear very, that's, I think it's a quick item to be
So-
heard. But
so
if that,
let's-
if that
let's-
motion, who would be making that motion? Commissioner
Commissioner
Bott?
Bott, I'll second.
Okay. And then all in favor?
Everyone's willing to co-sponsor. We can, since
If
we're all
I
getting
can,
along
just,
so well.
Commissioner Fernandez had to step away, but he had asked me to add him as a sponsor on the cleaning crew item.
I will as well, yep.
Magazine and Bott, okay.
I have a quick question, if I may. Rick, to codify this notion of having an art initiative in the parking garages, does that become a separate item that I have to bring, or can we make that as folded into this one?
I would recommend doing a separate item. I
Okay.
think they're kind of unrelated enough that
Okay.
we would want to do something separate.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, hearing none opposed, the item passes 3-0. And I believe, Chair, you want to hear MB 20?
Yeah, and let's hear MB 20 because it's directly in line with that, so we'll skip the niceties and just pick up where we left off.
I believe that's a quick one. MB 20, discuss lighting improvements at the 17th Street Garage, G5, MB 20.
Great, well, thank you all.
I said skip the niceties. Let's go.
So the 17th Street parking garage is directly south of City Hall, received an interior efficiency LED lighting upgrade in 2023. Subsequently, a lighting study was completed, which indicated that there was adequate lighting within the parking areas, stairwells, and elevator lobbies. To further provide adequate lighting on the 17th Street garage, we're seeking an additional $10,000 to add exterior wall packs on the south side of the garage to allow for better lighting. It'll add both security and safety for those folks that are using the garage and the pedestrian traffic that's heavily utilized there on the backside of the garage for Lincoln Road.
Yeah, this is public safety, this is economic development, this is getting that first and last impression, everything we all mentioned. Does somebody want to make a motion? I'll second. Okay, I'll second.
So we'll show this to return to Commissioner with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to implement the additional lighting discussed.
Yes.
That's being made by Commissioner Bott. Second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Magazine, all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, the item passes 3-0. Thank you.
And let's hear Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez. I know you're joining us, so let's hear NB 23. I don't think we'll get to 18. We have so much on the agenda, but I want to hear at least two of your items. So let's go to NB 23. Allow you to introduce that.
If I can. NB 23 was linked with NB 14, so I will read them both in. NB 14 discussed the activation of alleys in South Beach, Art Deco signs, and North Beach, MIMO signs, NB 14. And then NB 23 discussed considering beautification of the alleyways behind Roasters and Toasters and Cafe Avanti on the 41st Street corridor, NB 23.
I didn't realize they were linked. Is Commissioner Fernandez coming back eminently?
I don't really see them as being linked because I want this to be a totally separate project, or I feel like it will never be realized.
So we'll just show NB 23 being heard.
23, yep.
Got it, NB 23.
So, 41st Street, you know, we have the beautification project, but everybody knows that the sidewalks are narrow and it's a highway. But I want to encourage a cafe culture where people want to sit outside under umbrellas, akin possibly to a Lincoln Road type environment locally. We are in desperate need of something like this on 41st Street, only it's not going to happen on the highway side. It's going to happen on the back end of the businesses, right? And we need to create the environment for that to happen. If you look at our current alleyways on 41st Street, they are in bad shape. No offense, we know, they're in terrible shape. Now, this is a quick fix. Now that we understand that the most resilient pavement is pavers, and we have a vendor for it, and hopefully it's not too expensive, I would like to, here's what I would propose, because to say to do all of 41st Street is possibly too much. I would like to start with the alleyways, with two alleyways. One side on the alleyway behind Roasters and Toasters, adjacent to North Beach Elementary, and on the other side, I would like to do it where Pita Hut is, okay? And what I would like to do, simple landscaping and put out pavers, because that is going to encourage the businesses to have outdoor cafes. It's going to encourage other businesses to want to come to 41st Street because they can have outdoor cafes. And that way we're beautifying both the north and the south side of 41st Street. I don't think that this needs to be a huge capital expenditure. I would like to possibly get the price. Let's just do one. Pick one that you think that you can get done. Okay, let's start with one. Pick one alleyway and maybe come back. Come back next month, or should we move to the full commission? What if we can get it done?
I love the idea because one thing that I really think we lack is communal spaces. I hate leaving Brickell and coming back to Miami Beach and having nowhere where I can just go and sit out and see people. I hate that. So we need communal spaces. 41st Street is a great area. Brad, do you want to run with this, work with Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez?
absolutely.
We'll hear this and continue it, and we'll bring it back next month to kind of have a more refined analysis here.
Yeah, we're going to pick one where there's already a restaurant. That restaurant is going to be a big benefactor of this. And then once we see how beautiful it looks and how transformative it is, it's going to bring people back to 41st Street where we really need businesses, restaurants, cafes.
I love it. So conceptually, I support it. Want to see the devil in the details. But yes, I like this.
So we'll show the item heard in the return with a specific plan and cost.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's here, Mr. CFO, if we can, OB6.
Let me read in OB6. All right. OB6, a resolution of the mayor and city commission of the city of Miami Beach, Florida, directing the administration to negotiate appropriate terms and conditions for possible extension of the term of the Miami Beach Marina lease to include options for both a short-term, less than 10 years, and long-term, 10 years or more extension, and to present a draft term sheet that includes both options to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee, FERC, and the Public Safety and Neighborhoods and Quality of Life Committee for the review of each committee as soon as reasonably practicable. OB6.
Hi, Liz. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Miami Beach lease expires in 2052. The administration was directed on April 3rd, 2024 to negotiate appropriate terms for a short-term and long-term lease extension. Since that time, discussion was between Sofna and Suntex, which provided the changes to the marina lease. At the same time, OIG had been completing an audit of the marina lease effective April 17th, 2025, which is still under consideration by both parties. Both items should be considered in the final development of any lease agreement moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Over the last couple of weeks, we got a report from the Inspector General, right, with I guess a discrepancy that was alluded to of payments and money owed to the city. And I'd like to call through the chair, the Inspector General up and just give a brief summary of the findings.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, Joseph Santorino, Inspector General. We concluded an audit of the marina contract sometime last month, and it was a lengthy audit. I think it was begun in the latter part of 2023 and continued for a lengthy period of time. I will say that it was a contentious audit. We had great difficulty getting all of the records that we needed to complete it. The auditee lawyered up early on in the process, which they have a right to do, but I would say we did not get the level of cooperation that we would expect from a city contractor. We did identify a number of areas of, we think, a lack of compliance with terms in the management agreement. The most serious ones, I think, involve the failure to pay the proper amount to the city based on gross revenues that were generated at the marina. And there were a number of different categories of that. But it resulted in a substantial assessment that we we said that the audit only went for 1 year, the 2022. And we concluded, based on interpretations of the lease terms that we got from the city attorney, we don't ourselves make independent interpretations. We rely on the city attorney when it comes to any provisions in the contract that might be contended. And so I think for that 1 year, I think we concluded an assessment of about $661,000.
How much?
Excuse me?
How much?
661,000. That was our assessment of what the city was owed. And obviously, it doesn't include what it might have been owed for other years. And there's little doubt that the same practices were in place, before and after the audit, right up till the present day, as far as I know. Now, there was a contention by the auditee, by the marina, that they interpreted it differently. And so that's a matter that's, that we're in contention with. There also were, we identified some problems with the contract itself. Apart from compliance, I mean, there are terms in the contract that need to be updated for the city to be adequately protected. And so, I mean, essentially, we're...
Protected from what?
Excuse me?
You said adequately protected.
Protected from unfairness. I mean, the example I would use is 2 cents a gallon the city was getting for sales of gasoline that was in the original contract in 1983 had never been updated. So obviously, the cost of gas has gone up quite a bit since 1983, but no one ever thought to increase the city's portion or the city's revenue stream from that. So something like that is plainly unfair to the city, but it's in the contract. So we can't say that it wasn't complied with, that particular provision, but we certainly would say that before any consideration goes to extending the contract, unfortunately, we're stuck with it right now, but that certain things should be looked at, and maybe the contract terms should be changed to be fair to the city.
Mr. City Attorney, our Inspector General is saying that for 2022, the city is owed roughly $600,000, and that's just 1 year. I understand that you've been working with the Inspector General. Are you in agreement that this is money owed to the city for 2022?
Our office has been in touch with the Inspector General, and we've given him some opinions. There are disagreements on behalf of Suntex. I have not yet had conversations with each of you and your colleagues to discuss my thoughts. And in light of the, possibility of litigation, I would rather not go into some of the legal theories that are involved in these decisions. But at least in terms of the number that the Inspector General has proposed, our office does agree that there is at least support within the lease for that number.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Grieco, did you want to weigh in on anything?
I'd love to. Thanks. Michael Grieco on behalf of Suntext, 300 Alton Road, my office as well as the location of the marina. And I want to clarify a few things. We are not a city contractor. We are a tenant. Okay, so having the Inspector General call us a contractor or a vendor, we're already starting off on the wrong nomenclature. It is a lease. We are a tenant of the city, and we are the landlord of all the subtenants. So I want to make sure that we're operating with the same nomenclature. These are just facts. I want to make it clear that this lease, as was mentioned by the Inspector General, goes back to 1983. I don't know if any of you have read the Inspector General's report, but it also includes a 10-page response from our litigation counsel addressing every single issue that was raised in the report. We do not agree. Period. Full stop. I can go line by line and explain the position that my client has regarding each issue, but all of the discrepancies, this audit went on for about 1.5 years, and the conclusions are a result We already told them that. So just so you guys know, Suntex, and this predates all three of yours election to the commission. Suntex took over this lease from the Christophs in approximately 2019. Prior to Suntex taking over this lease, the city was getting about $1.2 million a year from the previous tenant. Since then, the city has averaged income of around $2.7 million a year since my client has taken over the marina, more than doubling the revenue that was provided to the city for the previous however many decades. Every single year since 1983, the calculations as to what gross receipts are have been exactly the same process that we use. Since 2019, every year when we provide our nice big check to the city, we provide an audit that's generated from a nationally recognized accounting firm, and they break everything down. And in that audit, it says in big letters, this money, gross receipts, does not include pass-through costs. It does not include CAM. That's where most of this money that Mr. Senorino is talking about comes from. This is not a surprise. It did not require a 1.5-year investigation. Every year since Suntex has had the contract, we tell you this. This is not a hide the ball. This is not something nefarious. We make it very clear as to how these calculations occur. One of the items that's in the Inspector General's report is that there's a discrepancy regarding our gross receipts number and the number that we provide to the state, because the number that we provide to the state includes sales for gasoline. But the gasoline money that we give to the city is separate from gross receipts because that's determined by per gallon sales. I can go line by line and explain every single dollar and how on our side it lines up. But to be even remotely accused of any wrongdoing or any shortcomings is it's just wrong. So
I don't think anyone's accusing.
No, I
Yeah,
disagree.
And
If you-
listen,
if you read-
I'm certainly not, but
I know
look,
you're not, but if you read the tenor of the OIG report, and if you are familiar with the tenor of just bringing up the fact that using the term lawyered up just shows how long Mr. Senorino was a prosecutor. In this country, especially when you're a tenant of a governmental entity, having lawyers is part of the process, and being denigrated even 1% by having attorneys is to me, coming from an attorney is kind of shocking. But regardless.
Representative, hold on. I hear what you're saying.
Right.
But look, we have an inspector general, right? He's employed by the city, and he provides us and the taxpayers a report. And when I see that there is a huge discrepancy for 1 year for a large sum of money, it raises concerns, right? And as I'm sure you know, I like to do things in the public, right? I don't like to do things behind closed doors. I like to just let everyone see in the sunshine what's going on. And so when our Inspector General tells us that there is an issue, I want to hear about it. I appreciate that Suntex is, now that that they've taken over, that it has doubled the revenue to the city. That's great. But again, you know, we're taking direction from our paid staff, right? And if they're saying that it needs to be more, then it needs to be more. And so let the Inspector General respond. I don't know if you want to respond, Joe.
Well,
It's
Okay, I'm just briefly, I mean, first of all, I mean, I don't need to quibble over terms, but a lease is a contract. We're in the same situation, but that's really not terribly important. And by the way, I have a cordial relationship with Mr. Grieco. Mr. Grieco did not represent the marina during the audit as an attorney. He did not. They had two other attorneys who he dealt with throughout the process, so he was not involved directly in the discussions that went back and forth. We met with the marina operators. In fact, the city attorney was present during some of those meetings. So, I mean, that was all done, you know, in a collaborative way. I never said that there was an intent to defraud. I simply said that they have a different interpretation. The city has its interpretation through the city attorney. So there's a discrepancy between what we think was owed and what was paid. That's where we are. We don't need to, I think, to go into any of the details. That's something I think for the city and the city attorney to decide going forward how you're going to handle that discrepancy.
Mr. Chief Financial Officer, have you have you read through the Inspector General report on, for the Suntex?
No, I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
No, I don't believe it was sent to my attention. I'm aware of it, but I have not had an opportunity to go through it.
Okay, look, I don't wanna, I don't wanna be, I'm trying to be very nice here, but we have an Inspector General audit that took a year and a half. There's a significant amount of money apparently that is owed to us. Our Chief Financial Officer hasn't even read the report. Our city attorney hasn't had conversations about this. And, you know, we're in the middle of possibly a new lease. So I think, you know, message to city staff, you know, let's get it together and let's make this a priority, because I want to get down to the bottom of what is owed, and so that we can move forward on this possible renegotiation of a lease.
Mr. City Attorney, sorry, Commissioner Bada, after the, quickly, how does this get rectified? We have one side saying X, another side saying Y. What is the path of resolution?
Oh, and I do want to just point out, the report was issued April 17th. I apologize that I have not had conversations yet, but I was out of the country from April 23rd up until just this past Sunday. But I will have conversations with each of you and with the city manager so that we can determine an appropriate course of action. Because as we've heard, there are discrepancies. I think this is the first time that this lease has been audited. So it's not surprising that there may be differences of interpretation on the language in the lease. In terms of next steps forward is having conversations with you and your colleagues and with the manager.
But you're gonna say to us, side one says X, side two says Y. What direction do you wanna take? What are those, what is our
I
involvement?
want to give you some sense of, you know, if we wanted to proceed, and I mean, Mr. Grieco's client has made clear that they are in complete disagreement. Now, another path is to sit at the table and as part of negotiations for a new lease, if that is the way that the city wishes to move, we can address some of these issues, perhaps receive some payment for the amounts that we believe are owed, and also take measures to make changes to the lease that, you know, they've been operating under a certain way for a number of years. So there are a lot of different options here, a lot of paths. Part of it depends on what direction the commission wishes to take in terms of whether we want to engage in negotiations to extend the lease. Last time that I heard from Mr. Grieco, there was no interest in doing a short-term extension. I think the focus was on long-term. I don't know if that's changed. So I think there's some questions that need to be answered.
I can respond briefly. And I want to remind everybody, I think that the one thing that has been kind of pushing all of this over the years is that we recognize that the property itself is substandard. You know, this lease goes back to a building from the early 80s, isn't really commensurate with the adjacent neighborhood, requires a lot of upgrades, and it's something that Suntex wants to make a long-term commitment to doing, including upgrading the Baywalk, upgrading the building, a potential redevelopment, all of these things probably not ripe for 2025. We have been a good steward of the property for the extended period of that time, since 2019, but I want to remind everybody this, that this alleged discrepancy that is a product of this audit, prior to this year, every single year since 1983, this is how it's been done.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing,
No,
right?
but it kind of does. No, so let me, I'm not.
And if, correct me if I'm wrong, but just the fact that it is a government entity, I think we have even more of a standard or a protection against that sort of argument,
So
where
I
just
disagree.
because it's been
So-
done, that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't be owed that money.
So we're not gonna go into the legalities of it, but let's just say that our position strongly disagrees with that position. I'm just going to leave it as that. So,
You've made that very clear.
And I encourage everyone here to not only read the Inspector General report, but to also read the 10-page response, which is very specific. And, you know, I think it does a very good job of addressing each one of the issues in layman's terms, not just in legalese, because I think it's very important. So Quinn Emanuel, I think they did an incredible job in breaking down what the Inspector General's findings were, because it's not gospel. All due respect to Mr. Senorino, who I've worked with since the late 90s, okay? We go back a long way, we get along very well. But we just have it's not just a difference of opinion, we have a difference of position. And we want to make a commitment to having a long-term relationship with the city. I think that there's a path to doing that, as was mentioned by the city attorney. And I do agree with one thing that Mr. Senorino said. When you're dealing, this lease is so old, it's on microfiche. Some of you don't even probably know what microfiche is. I know Tanya does. But it's, oh, whatever, me too. I'm turning 50 this year, relax. So, but it literally is on like dot matrix, like microfiche, 1983, like the papers aren't even straight when you see the copies. That's how old it is. And by the way, it's been amended several times. This is not like, there are multiple appendices to this over the years, including when Suntex took over the lease in right before 2020. So there is a history of this. This is not new. There's no hide the ball. The only new thing is the parking part of it, and the parking part of it was a product of a negotiation with the city manager's office to monetize the parking. So that's a separate issue.
So Mike, I
But
don't
we
want
wanna work
I don't want to
together.
belabor the topic. I think we need to have a discussion with our city manager, city attorney, and what, I guess we should keep this in committee.
Yeah. So borrowing from the trial scene, A Few Good Men, not only do you object, you strenuously object.
Yes, I strenuously object.
Okay. Commissioner Bott.
Just, Ron, quick question for you. What is I mean, we only got the memo this morning. What was the purpose of this conversation today? Or Liz?
To keep it alive. This was to, the item needed to come back onto committee because it's been floating around since like 2024.
Mike, you answer to Liz now? Good to know.
Liz is like off in the, she was still
Listen,
sitting
Liz
down.
is a rock star.
She was still sitting down.
But it was just a.
It was if I may, it was a technical item in the sense that it
That's
had
fine.
met its 6-month threshold, would have fallen off.
Yep.
And would have had been reintroduced.
Okay.
And to discuss the OIG report, or at least bring it to light.
So if we would hear the item heard, if I'm hearing, it sounds like there's still a lot of work to be done. Is this to return, maybe it's more on the administration's basis to to return it at an appropriate time, if that's okay with the chair? Okay, so we'll show it, the item heard and return at appropriate time based on the administration. Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you all. If we could hear OB7 and NB13. While our team's coming up and Mr. CFO to introduce that, I think these are some of the most critical items that we can hear when we think about the new direction and identity for our city. We have all collectively, over the last 2 years, taken tremendous strides for spring break and 52 weeks a year for our city, and collectively said who we don't want to be. We've done that part. We need to put our flag in the ground or in the sand and say who we do want to be. And I think economic development, attracting businesses to Miami Beach is a critical path forward. So we don't have to program our way out of spring break and find events for this. We structurally change our economy, who we are as a city, through economic development. If you look at the price of airline stocks, what they've done over the course of the past couple of months, that shows the expectation for waning international and domestic travel. So it is incumbent upon us to take even further steps to really diversify our economy away from a dangerous concentration hospitality. So, Mr. CFO, let me turn this over to you, and then we'll have our economic development team tee this up further.
Thank you. OB7, Economic Development Department update. Steps taken to improve business retention and attract new business. OB7 and MB13 discuss possible economic incentives to attract more businesses to the city and expand existing programs. MB13.
Good afternoon, Heather Shaw, Interim Director of Economic Development. Good morning, you guys, or good afternoon, actually, to everyone. I'm going to give my apologies. I am fighting a cold, so if I am coming off a little rustic or you can't hear me, just let me know and I'll repeat. As my colleague, CFO, just mentioned, we have submitted 2 memos outlining. One is outlining all the things that economic development is currently doing in terms of attracting new businesses as well as retaining businesses. We have a host of programs and marketing campaigns that we are doing. We are also collaborating with leveraging the convention center and other partners and stakeholders within the city to do everything that we can do to, as the commissioner just mentioned, to diversify our economy by attracting more tech companies and financial services companies. We have a host of incentives and grant programs that actually are, successful. In the second memo that is submitted under MB 13, you see all of our incentive programs, and I added in all of the advantages and challenges and a recommendation on each of those programs. Some of those programs need a little bit more time. Some of them need a little tweaking. This is something to show you that we are always constantly moving forward and not being stagnant with our programs and doing what we can and staying on top of the data.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather, and thank you for the hard work you and your team do. The one thing that really stood out to me is here, I want to be bold, right? I want to make national and international headlines and say, Miami Beach is open for business. We are putting our money where our mouth is, and we are going above and beyond to attract certain businesses. I'll be honest, when I saw FC Barcelona relocating their corporate headquarters to downtown Miami, I was happy for our region. That physically hurt me, that those things are coming to Miami Beach, right? Because we are so primed for that. But then I looked at the incentives that they're providing, and they are well above and beyond the programs that we have in place in Miami Beach. And, I've done some research and analysis, and while we do have some incentives, I worked a couple of months ago with an executive team to see if they'd be willing to relocate their businesses here. And I knew that we had incentives in place. I didn't know the technicalities of them. And they asked, and I looked them up. I requested the information from you. And I was actually debating whether to tell them we didn't actually offer financial incentives for job creation, because the number, I was almost embarrassed to say, right? We offer $600 per employee for the first 50 jobs and $400 per employee for jobs 51 through 100 with a $60,000 max per company. I've done some research through, it's called Sister Cities. Rising tide lifts all boats. I'd love to see our region prosper. I care about Miami Beach, right? So we need a competitive advantage. Boca, they offer up to $10,000 per employee, up to a maximum of $500,000. Broward County, they offer $2,000 per employee, up to $200,000 per company. Pasco County, $3,000 per job created if it's 125% of annual wages, but they go upwards to $5,000 per job created. And I can name similar numbers from other cities. City of Fort Lauderdale, $3,000 per job depending on the wage level. West Palm Beach, $2,000 per job, depending if it's at a wage level. Manatee County, $3,000 to $6,000 per job. I think it is incumbent upon us for diversifying our economy to saying not only who we're not going to be, but who we're going to be, to really roll out the red carpet for some of these companies to come here, to relocate their regional, their corporate headquarters. We have new office space that's coming online. Those are ways that we don't have to rely on events or spring break or activations. Those are structural changes that we can make to our economy. The time to do it was yesterday. The next best time to do it is now. So I know as part of the recommendation in the memo was enhancing and evaluating some of these measures. My recommendation is to have us start with the financial incentives for new job creation, and we can, fine tune the details and things like this, but I want those headlines to say Miami Beach is now leading our region in the incentives that we're doing to attract high-paying, high-wage jobs to Miami Beach, right? So for a company that's willing to relocate here, hire our residents, expand our workforce, diversify our economy, there is a tangible ROI that we're going to get on this. I was just running some like fun back of the envelope analysis, and just me being in my office over in Brickell, you're spending $25 in lunch, and then my gym membership is over there, and then you go out for happy hour, and then you go out for dinner. So the types of economic activity that accompanies jobs coming here, that is how we fix Lincoln Road. That is how we fix our commercial corridors, right? If you look down Lincoln Road at noontime on a Wednesday, who's there? Who's there? But if we bring companies here, if we bring jobs here, those businesses are going to be the benefactors of that, right? When we talk about the vacancies, the commercial vacancies, we need to find a product that's going to support that. And what better way to go out and attract high-paying, high-wage jobs? And to do so, we need to have financial incentives that are either at worst in line, what I would prefer, above what our regional competitors are having. So let me hand that over, gauge how my colleagues feel. I think the mayor's chief of staff said the mayor may be calling in as well. This is his item, helping to lead the way on this. Okay.
If I may. I love this. I think it's really important to diversify away from tourism for the reasons you spelled out. I don't think that's going to change in the next several years at a minimum. I think there has been a perception that you should feel honored and privileged to be able to call Miami Beach your home for your business. But it has hardships. It's the end of the line for commuting. It's expensive to live. It's got complications. And so, I see where like Pasco County or some other areas might have really high incentives because they don't have nearly as much as what we do have to offer. But at the same time, we have some complicating factors that make it a little bit harder to open businesses here. So, maybe that wasn't necessary 15, 20, 25 years ago to the degree that it is now. But with people being able to have digital offices and smaller footprints anywhere in the world, they can have people working from all kinds of places and having a smaller home office. I think we really do need to explain, incentivize people to come here for all the things that make us unique and wonderful, and recognize that we have complicating factors that we are helping to mitigate to get them set up, and then they'll come and realize how awesome it is and it's worth the headache. So I'm all in on this.
Mr. Schwartz? Me too. Excellent. Heather, do you want to add anything? What do you think the best pathway forward is here? I think it'd be a bit premature to say exactly what to quantify what these incentives are going to be, but I'd be honored to work together with you and when we have Stephen come on board, but I don't want that to get in the way, and hold this up. I want to really move forward with making Miami Beach the epicenter for where some of these companies are going to come, and incentivize them hiring our residential population for some of these high-paying jobs, right? And the great thing about these programs, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, we can allocate money, we can allocate these funds, but it's only utilized if these companies actually move here and take advantage of it. So it's not as if we're saying, oh, okay, here's $200,000 per company. We're only spending that money if we get something great in return, right? We're only giving $200,000 to some company if they hire 100 people that are here at a wage of 125% of our median income. And think about all that economic activity that kicks off. So this provides a very real and tangible ROI for any dollar that's being spent. We're going to get that back because we're structurally changing our economy.
Nothing to correct.
Keep it that way, Rick. Good job. Okay, so let's open and continue, where let's work in the next month. I'd like to hear this next month, and let's actually quantify what those numbers are going to be. I'm going to focus on I didn't see anything that was out of the ordinary for some of the other things like permit fast tracking, one thing that I did see a lot of other areas have is facade improvements and things like that. We have that as well. I'm going to focus on the financial incentives for job creation, but if there's other elements outside of the box that you and your team want to work on as well, and then to try and quantify what those financial incentives are, let's work together.
So we can show the item was heard and to return with a specific plan to implement enhanced business attraction programs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Let's hear OB5, the Byron Carl.
Thank you. Let's see here. OB5, discuss the Byron Carlisle workforce housing component as it pertains to unit size and affordability. OB5. Ron, your mic.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. The Byron Carl Geo Bond Project is both cultural arts center and workforce housing. The strategy has been to solidify the center programming while investigating the workforce housing component to drive toward completion of an RFP. Today's discussion centers around the findings of the unit sizes, affordability considering the requirement for no micro units and short-term rentals, and the overall price considerations. Our Assistant Director, Daniel Alturi, has additional details.
Hi, good afternoon. Daniel Alzuri, Facilities and Fleet, here to speak on the Byron and more specifically the workforce housing component at this crossroad. So we've received the final report from AMS on the Cultural Center, and it looks very promising. And at the January Finance Committee meeting, the topic came up of the affordability of the workforce housing and the unit size of the workforce housing. Now, that hasn't been really our area of focus as of yet. To now, it was getting the cultural center right, optimizing the space for our local arts organizations, for the residents, so that we have a useful cultural center that's going to activate that corridor over 350 days a week, a year. Our focus turned now to workforce housing. A large component of this is going to be the success of workforce housing, not just for the effect it has on obviously the housing, but the potential to be able to subsidize the community programming of the cultural center. So it is an economic engine. It could be an economic engine that feeds itself and therefore raises, as the saying goes, the rising tide lifts all boats. So my findings, and a lot of this concern stemmed from the Anamar project at Collins Park. The perception is that the rents are too high, the units are too small. And when I compared it very anecdotally to what other projects are out in Miami-Dade County, looking at Doral, looking at Miami River, looking at South Miami, which is probably the most comparable to what is at Collins Park, looking at South Dade, I did find that Collins Park, the Anamar project, is priced significantly higher than the average, and the unit sizes for the studios, they're on par. The unit sizes for the 1 and 2 bedrooms are a little bit smaller. However, they're well within the HUD regulations set for Miami-Dade County.
Why is it higher?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why is it higher?
Because as part of the development deal, there were no restrictions put on, further restrictions other than the HUD requirements on the development. So it was defined as affordable or workforce housing. Workforce housing actually can go up to 140 AMI. So right now, Anamar is actually at 120 AMI. So they're not as high as they can go. However, they are just within the HUD. What HUD stipulates is workforce housing, would qualify for workforce housing and therefore workforce housing credits.
And was this building in Collins Park smaller than the other ones kind of throughout the county? So where I'm going with that is, Yeah, we restrained ourselves because we wanted the height and the density to be in context with the rest of the neighborhood, so probably left us less flexibility. It couldn't be as dense, it couldn't be as tall, so we weren't able to essentially extend with some of the lower affordability options.
Those are all great questions. Unit sizes, number of units was comparable. I don't know about height and FAR, but these are all the details that encompass the devils, right? As we sit across, as city staff sits across from developers, they're gonna have their lawyers, they're gonna have their finance people, and they're gonna say, this is what works for us. And we as a city have in front of us what we have defined so far. And on this project, what we've defined so far is the cultural center. So what I propose is if the committee wants to discuss further regulating either the maximum rent or the minimum unit size, that we explore those levers within the project to optimize the revenue on the back end so that we understand the deal that we're getting into. If we ask for too much, this project could be cost prohibitive to a for-profit developer. If we ask for too little, we're leaving value on the table, which, you know, as this person from the city moving this project along, I would not like to do. So I have put forth a proposal from AMS in conversation about this topic with AMS. Stephen Wolf, who is the principal at AMS, said, can I bring somebody to your attention? Are you willing to have a conversation? And he brought a company out of New York, Denham Wolf, who specializes in working with nonprofits on real estate deals. So they are the pros from Dover that come in and lend the expertise to nonprofits with very valuable real estate assets that are looking to enter into P3s to optimize the return on those assets. So that's Denham Wolf's proposal through AMS. The other half of this is if we as a city say we want to make these units attainable, bottom line, then there may be a course of action where instead of entering into a development deal with a for-profit developer, we can just pay them a development fee, but the finances would change. So at that point, the city may have to take on additional financing. We may engage a nonprofit, which the nonprofit that AMS suggested we look at for the operation of the cultural center is Friends of the Byron. So they may be able to come into play for additional financing. So as part of this proposal from AMS, there's also a financial consultant, Hilltop Securities, that can look at everything we're asking for, so our values in this project, look at all of the pieces we have to play, and then organize them in a way that they can tell us, look, this is the capital that you guys need to bring in. These are your options for bringing in the capital. This is your option for who brings in that capital. So we could do a true P3 with a nonprofit, hire a developer for a developer fee, say, thank you very much for the beautiful cultural center workforce housing, you know, have a nice day. Or we can enter into a design finance build agreement like we did at Collins Park, but we would be armed with a realistic picture of what we can ask for. Are we asking for too much and therefore making it cost prohibitive, or are we asking for too little and leaving value on the table?
Am I being simplistic in thinking that there's an inverse correlation between low or higher AMI restrictions and the amount the city will essentially have to subsidize?
There is more profitability in the higher AMI, and therefore it would make it more attractive to a private developer. And therefore, it depends on how we cut the deal and to who the city would be subsidizing. If we left the developers to their own devices, they would obviously cut a deal that would support the workforce housing, but not the cultural center. So the report from AMS right now shows that the cultural center in the first few years as it ramps up would be operating at a deficiency of about $600,000 a year. So our objective here is to create this deal so that that workforce housing, particularly as the bond gets paid down, there are more net revenues on the back end that can be used for community programming, free classes, free events, lower ticket prices, subsidized rent, so we can actually not have to raise the rent as fast as the market would dictate.
And I think I'm going to be hesitant in trying to redefine HUD's guidelines for what constitutes affordability. I know we all pick up Facebook and read, oh my gosh, those are the rents at Collins Park, that's not affordable. Well, everybody could have their own interpretation of that, right? I can look at rents anywhere and say, well, that's not affordable, but if somebody's paying them, they're affordable to somebody, right? And if HUD is defining those AMI guidelines for affordability, I'm going to be hesitant to try and redefine that, especially the lower that we try and guide that, the more the city is essentially going to have to subsidize. Commissioner Bob.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to redefine what HUD sets as the guidelines. I think the opportunity here is to, unlike how we handled it with Collins Park, learn from that experience and engage with somebody who is an expert in this and figure out what is the Rubik's Cube of how many units we can have at what size and at what price, because, you know, we might get the maximum impact with, you know, 20, let's say 20 of the 80 units, whatever they are, at 125 AMI, and 20 at the lowest AMI, percentage of AMI, and then there's a mix in the middle. And we don't know, we don't have the expertise on staff to figure out what that combination is, but by doing this research up front, we can find out what that ideal mix is that generates the most security for the project, the most profitability in terms of getting rents to help subsidize the operating costs for the first few years, and being the most useful to provide a healthy balance mix of workforce attainable housing for North Beach. And I think that's the goal here. We have options to fund this research. One of which is what I would recommend, is through the North Beach CRA, which is required by law. Heather, is it 5% or 10%? Of the 10%, thank you. 10% of the, a minimum of 10% of the North Beach CRA budget needs to be put towards affordable housing, and I believe this is a cost that would qualify for that. We have money, we're gonna have more money coming in even this year as projects in North Beach get, you know, start getting sold. So let's put that money to work to do exactly what it's supposed to do, which is figure out how to get more affordable housing in North Beach. So I would like to move this item with that recommendation, with option number 2.
And through the chair, if I may, to clarify, beyond just the AMI capacity and what HUD sets, this firm wouldn't be dictating to us what the rents should be, but they'll allow us to know the margins, so that if we decide, hey, let's keep it at full HUD, we see that the market will bear it, it's still gonna serve its purpose in, you know, the affordable housing market, then we would optimize, and I think the key word is optimize the deal, so that the city is getting the full value of its, you know, $12 million worth of land, $30 million worth of cultural center, and potentially up to $4 million worth of workforce housing subsidy. So the more we know, the better deal we can strike when we are negotiating with these developers.
When does this break ground?
I'm on my way over there now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
In this study is going to help you technically optimize what you want?
That is what Denim Wolf does. They work with nonprofits.
And how much is the
to
study?
Optimize. All of it is about $190,000, with the integration between AMS and Denim Wolf to understand the deal within the structure of the cultural center, and then Hilltop Securities to understand the capital stack that we would need and the options. If we were to say we want to keep it a little bit on the higher AMI, this project would be attractive to developers, which opens more doors. If we were to say we don't want this at 120, we want this to average 90 AMI, then there could be 120% AMI units, there could be 80 AMI units, and the mix to achieve that 90 AMI. And they could tell us how to do this.
So that's $190,000?
Yes.
I mean, I'm
Between
all for studying,
160 and 190 is what they would do.
Look, I'm all for arming you guys with the best ammunition when you talk to these developers and making these deals, but why does it cost so much?
It's 3 firms that'll be looking. One is, a firm that specializes in real estate in New York. I think they're charging about $70,000 of this. And as part of that, they also give us the language to include
So
in our RFP.
are these three firms, did they serve different functions, or is this just three
Yeah.
different
It's the
perspectives?
The three firms are AMS, who have been writing with us the entire time at the Cultural Center, and every aspect of this has to be, it's a cultural center with workforce housing. We don't want to invert that and be, workforce housing with a cultural center. So that's AMS's role. Denham Wolf is who structures the deals, who looks at market research, who will actually, their standing relationship with developers will let us know who to best target to bring developers that are used to this. They will say, we can't guarantee that they'll come, but we know who is in this realm and who to target, who the city can target. And then Hilltop Securities is the finance firm that would look at the cultural center, look at the workforce housing component and say, under these parameters, these are your financing options.
You can't find like one consultant to do all three and get like a package deal? I mean, I don't know, 160 to 190,000 for a study. It seems excessive, and I understand it might be funded through the CRA, but that's still money that could have been offered to other improvements, other than a study. Is this something that staff can do? Do you feel comfortable doing it in-house?
I don't know that our staff has the expertise with real estate market, understanding all of the sources for funding for these. So these are grants, these are tax credits.
Well, we have a grant division in our city.
This is a little bit more sophisticated than I think what our grant, and I don't want to speak for our grant, disparage our grant division, but it is specifically federal grants for housing at different levels. We can, what I'm looking for is someone to come in to assure that we're optimizing our hand when we sit down with developers.
Well, look, I'm not ruling it out, but why don't we sit down with developers first, see what proposals they give us. Let's hear it at the next finance meeting. And if we think that this is something that we're completely out of range to be dealt with, maybe we'll go through with the study. I certainly would want to see, $190,000 go to something else besides a study. But let's, and I think you even mentioned that one of the firms, it says that they'll give you some references for developers. Let's just see if any developers are interested in this to begin with before, we spend money on seeing what contacts they can reach out to. I don't know. It's up to my colleagues, but I think let's take a step back and see, do we really need to fund $190,000 for a study to just begin a negotiation? Maybe we just start that now. Let's see what proposals we get, and maybe we'll be comfortable with it. I don't know, but I think $190,000 would be better used for other issues in North Beach, like water quality.
Okay. I was going to say, this specific funding from the CRA has to be used for workforce housing. And
I'd rather see like an actual, unit in workforce housing with that $200,000 than, funding 3 different consultants.
Understood. The timeline for that, we would have to finish putting together the RFP, put out to RFP, and then entertain those proposals that came back, have that conversation, and then potentially go into a reissue of the RFP. It may delay this for 8, 10, 12 months. That's the only thing that I would put out there in terms of, because we'd have to go through essentially two RFP processes if we weren't happy with the first one. And the first one, my fear is in not defining what the city wants out of the workforce housing, we're essentially handing over this property to a developer to then tell us what they're willing to give us instead of us demanding, this is what we know this land is worth. This is what we know this project is worth. You're not in the ballpark. And that's my fear. That we sit at the table not prepared to drive a hard bargain when we're dealing with these developers. So we can go through this RFP process. It will probably take about 6 months. Maybe we can expedite it a little bit, but around 6 months. And then if we get proposals that aren't the unicorn, we would have to go back into the RFP process. So we're.
But wouldn't we, like, wouldn't we be getting both? I mean, at the same time, like let's say we spend the money to get a study, and then the developers come, and then we have this sort of ammunition. It would be the same amount of developers coming before us, correct? And all I'm saying is, before we spend that kind of money, let's see what they offer, and if we're not comfortable with it, then we'll go to the 3 firms to consult, or any number of them.
Yep.
Maybe we only need one, at which point to properly negotiate.
I'm sorry, one developer
Or one firm.
One firm.
Yeah.
I have some concerns with that approach. I think we've had enough real-world experience with the prior iterations of trying to redevelop the Byron Carlisle, where we didn't have any specifics other than we wanted a community center of some sort, and we got 2 proposals, one of which withdrew, and the second of which was an unfinished gray box with affordable housing, not affordable housing, market value housing on top of it, because we didn't have the parameters. I mean, if we go into an RFP saying specifically, based on our research, we know this is doable, this is specifically what we want. Give us your best design, price, process for it. That is a much better outcome than this is generally what we want, tell us how we can accomplish it. Because we're not telling them exactly what we want. We're saying generally, we want some affordable housing and we've got a cultural center. And we've seen that get eroded in prior iterations of this. And we saw it get eroded, different circumstances, but eroded in the outcome with the NMR project. So I'm concerned about this. I will ask you though, there are 3, I mean, so AMS is a consultant that we're using on an ongoing basis. So part of that cost is what we're paying them anyhow, right?
No, it is integrating the findings from Denham Wolf and Hilltop into their report.
Okay.
To make sure that.
But so that's a small cost.
That is the smallest of the 3.
Okay, and Hilltop is the one that says, here are people who are in that space who might be interested.
No, Hilltop would be coming from the findings, taking the findings that we received from Denham Wolf. They would analyze how we can best finance this. So.
Okay, but Denham Wolf is the one who gives us sort of the template of this is what we can do. Here's we're playing with the levers, and by adjusting these, this is what we can. And I think that's right now the most pressing thing.
Yeah.
I would suggest maybe a way to compromise on this would be to wait on the financial stack portion of this and see if that's needed. Once we have a very clear idea of what specifically we want, and we put out an RFP, we should be able to get people saying, that sounds good, let's bid on that. I would suggest that perhaps if we run into trouble with that, at that point we could engage a financing expert to help us get more likely candidates.
Well, through the chair, why aren't we discussing that now? I mean,
What are we doing?
Why don't we discuss that like now? What do we want? What do we want to see there?
Well, so the reason why it's back to us now is because we've had this discussion on the dais. I don't remember if it was in committee or at the commission meeting, but there was a conversation of let's make sure we have the right mix of affordable housing. And let's make sure we maximize the space and the returns, and we do that, and we don't have that expertise, and I certainly don't have that expertise. Our staff doesn't have that expertise, and so this is one of the times where you use CRA money to get the best possible project parameters defined so you can come back with the best possible project. I would be concerned if this were a $2 million consulting project that was going to take 2 years, but it's not. It's under $200,000. With the 3, and would be less without using just 2 of the 3, take a couple of months at most, and we will be able to go forward and not jeopardize the time frame and not have, one more round of, oh, they can't do anything right, which is, we're trying to get this right. And, I haven't said it in a while, but it's a good opportunity to say, measure twice, cut once on this. So I would be in favor of the motion that I made again.
So, I would still like to have faith in our staff to give us at least a general idea of what options are available to us. Would you consider deferring for a month and allowing staff to at least individually meet with myself and Commissioner Magazine to see, are they capable of at least giving us a general idea without having to expense a consultant to tell us what options we have? In which case, the three of us may be able to say, yeah, this is pretty much exactly what we want. We can narrow down our idea, which may in turn lower the cost of the consulting fee.
I mean, I think the reason why we're here is because we've heard from staff that they don't have the expertise. I know I'm not an affordable housing expert, to the best of my knowledge, neither of you are either. And so, you know, I know that I've asked for things to get deferred and give more time, and I'm happy to give 1 month, but I don't think it's going to yield us results. So I defer, no pun intended, to staff to tell me, will a month give us anything that we don't know today?
I think at most it's going to give us a chance to have individual conversations. We have a lot of sharp knives in our drawer, but you know, I learned at a young age, don't take a knife to a gunfight. And I feel that's the case when we sit and put out an RFP with developers, that unless we understand their world, we're at a disadvantage. So we can have conversations. I can ask colleagues to see who can weigh in on this and add insight. I just feel that having and actually it would give us an opportunity for you individually to have conversations with Denham Wolf, if you would like, if it gives you an opportunity to feel more comfortable with them. These are heavy hitters. These are people that are going to tell us this is every drop of juice you can squeeze from this deal. Where I feel that if we don't do that, we're going to. There's always places to hide, you know, in a deal. And I'm afraid that if we don't bring that expertise online, we're not going to optimize this deal for the city.
I just want to add, if I might, that the reason why it is so complicated is because this doesn't exist. This is a new model in this country. It doesn't exist. And so let's get it right. Let's use the resources available to us, which, you know, just because we hire outside folks doesn't mean that we don't all weigh in, that we don't have ancillary conversations with staff who can lend additional insights. But I don't know why, if we are trying to set the standard for something that will be a model for the country and could be spectacular, as one more thing that Miami Beach is doing, first in the nation, leading edge, you know, something that we can be really proud of, while also, by the way, creating an economic engine in North Beach and adding, you know, who knows how many new affordable housing units in North Beach where it's sorely needed. And we have the funding source for a relatively, I mean, look, $190,000 is a huge amount of money to me. But in the grand scheme of development projects, it is a very small cost to get the parameters right.
So if this gets moved forward with a favorable recommendation, it still goes to the commission, correct? For approval? Okay, so then that's fine. In the meantime, let's approve it today.
I believe the recommendation was to go, because of the funding, to return to commission with a favorable recommendation, to then refer it to the North Beach
So then
CRA Advisory Committee.
That can give me enough time to speak to the consultants, and I don't want to slow I mean, I know this is Commissioner Bott's most passionate project. I certainly don't want to slow it down. I just want to make sure that we're using the best values for our tax dollars. And it seems like there's plenty of time between now and the next, when would this go to commission, the next one?
I would leave it up to the Department of the Sea, because they would have to, let me read this to make sure that the Commissioner Bott's motion is, if I have it right in the spirit. So it would return to commission with a favorable recommendation for a referral to the North Beach CRA Advisory Committee to discuss utilizing the North Beach CRA workforce housing budget to fund the consulting proposal, and then the return to FERC when appropriate. I believe is the motion.
Wait, why does it have to come back to FERC?
At some point, right? This item would come back to FERC at some point, or
It
would
can
that be
go,
the
it
end?
for
can
the
go as
approval.
long as we obtain the bid waiver as well as the authorization for either the
We can
budget
close it then.
amendment or the CRA funding.
Yeah.
It would just go to commission and then
And then-
be
And
executed.
I would suggest that we phrase it as up to 190, because then that gives you the leeway to not use, I can't remember, Hilltop, Denham, whichever one it was about the financing stacking, because it might become evident that that's not necessary, and that might be something that we can dispense with. So it doesn't, we don't have to have all three necessarily to start with. As we go through the process, if we see, oh, this is going to be way more complicated than we thought, then we might bring in the third person. But if we see, you know what, there is a good way to make this work, and we should be fine, then we don't need to start off with all three, which I think threads the needle a little bit. My question also is, can't it go from here directly to the CRA? Or does it have to stop at commission first? 'Cause
I'll
that-
ask the city attorney, but I believe only the commission can refer.
Yes, that's correct. It will have to go back to commission.
And we've
Okay.
had this relatively, we've had this before, referrals to the North Beach.
So
CRA.
I would like it to go to the May commission meeting, please. I don't want to wait.
That's,
Have the department work on that resolution. So we'll add the up to 190,000 in the housing budget and removing the retaining part, which seems appropriate. So if that's the motion, Commissioner Bott made the motion.
And if you can set up a meeting
Absolutely.
with the three consultants
Do I have a second?
between, yeah, I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Suarez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, it passes.
Can I
9-0.
ask you just one quick question? I'm still in favor of this, but we have two development agreements that are in front of us, and they're quasi or straight out public-private partnerships. And the developers in both of those instances are incredibly sophisticated and well-resourced, and also wouldn't have any types of conflicts, because it's not like they're vying for this type of business. Could we not ask to see if they would be willing to be a partner in leveraging us, some of their expertise in walking your team through some
Just to
of these
provide an
projects?
opinion, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
It's $200,000, it's a lot. I don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish, where we don't utilize this and lose money in the long haul. But I can tell you the people that are doing business in some of these projects are more sophisticated than any consultant we're going to go out and leverage. So reach out. I'm happy to help facilitate that. If they are truly partners in our city, like they project themselves to be, they can help us utilize some of their resources.
Yeah, and for one of my proposals, Washington Avenue, I requested David Martin do a full analysis on, I think it was 3 different sites. And he was very helpful. Gave a full breakdown analysis, and I'm sure he'd be more than willing to help us.
That worked out well for him.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Much
you.
appreciated. We'd like to hear 2 more items. We don't have a hard stop at 2, do we?
It's actually, we're over, it's at 1:30. So I believe you can motion to extend if you.
Would you guys be okay for 15 minutes? I want to hear, Michael Rossi is on for the projection mapping, and then I know Commissioner Suarez asked to hear NB 33 as well.
So we'll show everyone extending to 2:10.
So,
Super fast.
yeah, let's do the,
I'm just gonna make a motion for mine, and it doesn't matter, we don't really have to discuss it, I just wanted to get back to the commission,
okay.
What's yours?
the pension.
Projection mapping, I hope is fast.
We're hearing both the projection mapping items which are linked, correct?
No, because I told Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, we wouldn't, have to have hearers in North Beach, but then I was just alerted Michael Rossi's online, so let's bifurcate those. I don't want to steal her thunder. I think we have one
Mine's gonna
for.
take a minute.
27,
Yeah,
okay. So
let's hear Commissioner Suarez's, and then Lizette, we'll hand it over to you and hear the West Avenue projection mapping.
okay.
Commissioner
I'm sorry,
Suarez,
which
do you
item
want
is
to
that?
introduce your item?
Which item number?
Yeah, what's the item number?
The
It's your item,
NB
sir.
33.
Oh, it's-
And then we'll hear that in 1 second. Visit NB 27.
MB 33, an ordinance of the mayor and city commission of Miami Beach, Florida, amending the Miami Beach Employees Retirement Plan created by ordinance number 2006-3504 as subsequently amended to amend the provisions applicable to elected officials, providing with severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict therein, and providing an effective date. MB 33.
I move my item.
And I'll second, that's what, just the, have it heard at the full commission?
Yeah.
That's fine, because I think we're gonna get into a drawn-out discussion there. So while committee is to vet some of those details, I think everybody's gonna wanna say their 2 cents or
$10.
maybe their accrued value of 2 cents.
Commissioners, there's public comment?
Is it being referred with a favorable recommendation, or is it just being referred back for discussion?
I think it's just being referred back is what I understood.
Okay, return to commission for discussion.
Next item, yeah, okay. Yep.
So we'll show the item return to commission for discussion. I believe that we require a vote, right? So motion made by Commissioner Suarez, second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Magazine, all in favor?
Aye.
3-0, item passes. MB 33.
And then let's hear NB 27. Hopefully we can wrap this up by 2 PM for Commissioner Bott's hard stop.
MB 27, discuss sponsoring a projection mapping event in Canopy Park for Memorial Day 2025 or other suitable festive date. MB 27.
Yes, so this won't be for Memorial Day. The West Avenue and Sobe West organizations have been working hand in hand with Michael Rossi, part of the organization that does the projection mapping on Ocean Drive, on Lincoln Road. It was funded through the GEO bond program that is paid by our residents. I would love to essentially help facilitate a project where our residents are receiving some of those values. So while we're doing it now, hopefully in Canopy Park, Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez has one for up in North Beach for Ocean Terrace. So hopefully this can be part of a, yeah, absolutely. So is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Lisa Arrogante, Tourism and Culture. And I know we have Michael Rossi from Miami Beach Classical Music Festival on the line. We met with Tim Carr, president of Sobe West, and we also have 2 residents from Bentley Bay on the call as well. This is to discuss funding for a projection mapping event for Halloween. So this is actually what we thought would be the best way to launch something in Canopy Park. They would be projecting onto one of the buildings of the Bentley Bay. And in your memo, you will see on the second page the cost breakdown. So just to have the projection mapping equipment is about $88,000 because the building is big. So it's a lot different from when they've projected on Ocean Drive and in Lincoln Road. And Michael's on the call as well. In addition to that, they've provided a package of 3 different options, which include, just having a basic package of just sound. The other one is having more, a 25-piece orchestra. And then the last one is having, a village like they do in Loomis Park with having different vendors and making it really a whole comprehensive event. The start of that would be in total about $101,000 for the simple package. The medium package is about $127,000, and then the whole kit and caboodle, bells and whistles, is $166,000. And I have Michael on the
How
call.
I feel, given it would be Halloween, I don't think the orchestra would be necessary because we're going to have so many other things going on. I know myself and my family and a lot of the families in this area, everybody just goes up to the Lakeview neighborhood because there's so much going on. It'd be great actually to help relieve some of that strain and stress that happens up there, to kind of spread out some of the events and activations in our area. So turn it over to my colleagues, something championed by the neighborhood associations, but if you all had any thoughts.
So is this fee is for, it's not just one time, it's for future events?
It's just for one time.
So
Yes.
it's 88,000 for just one time?
It's 101. So 88 is just to have additional projectors at the building's height. And Michael, you're on the call if you want to explain that.
But if we wanted to do other holidays, is it gonna cost less in the future?
No.
Michael, I think where Commissioner Suarez, perhaps rightfully so, going any way to value engineer this a little bit.
Michael Rothstein, please unmute yourself.
How much does a fireworks show cost? The city?
With a barge, over 85 to 100,000. It depends on the size of the show that you want. But
Well, for July 4th, what do we roughly?
right now,
What does the
so
city
we're
pay?
like at 90,000. That's with a barge for a 12-minute show.
Michael, were you able to unmute and talk? Which building would this go on?
Bentley
On
Bay.
Bentley Bay, on the backside of Bentley Bay.
The front, the east side or the west side?
The east side, that's facing Canopy
East
Park.
side of the building, but the projection would be west facing.
And how would you coordinate with? Oh, because it's all concrete. Yeah, that would be nice. It's just really expensive.
Yep.
I mean, 100.
If you just recall, I mean, the item per the administration, just like the broken record we are, is to be considered during the 26 budget process, so there wouldn't be any final action. So if it's a, return with a favorable commission, be considered during the 26 budget process.
And this 101,000 is just, I guess this is a bid waiver, correct? Because it would just be coming from Michael Rossi, or we're.
We don't procure artistic services, so this is outside of that. So
Do you know what it costs for a day at the Betsy?
for a day,
Or for evening when they do it at the Betsy?
I don't have that with
Michael,
me.
if
It's a
you could
little bit
unmute, it'd be
less.
great.
And the reason for that is the height of the Bentley Bay is what Michael has explained
Yep.
to me, that he has to get additional projectors, and it's more technical work, and that's why it's 88,000 just for that.
Do we know what let's call it the Betsy, or I think we have it at one of the other.
I'm gonna put you on. I'm gonna put you on speakerphone on my microphone. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm unmuted. I see myself talking online, but I don't know why you can't hear. So I really apologize.
We can all hear you now. So obviously we're having some issues with the cost, and we would like to maybe use the same cost that would have been available for future or other holidays. Is that something you can do? And maybe you can walk us through how the price got
Sure.
structured?
What I wanted to mention, and I don't know if you were able to see the video I sent or not, but the size of this building is twice the size of the Tides building. It's twice the size of all of Ocean Park. When we do not Ocean Park, when we do the 6 buildings. So the cost is much higher because we need to ultimately rent double the amount of equipment than what the GeoBond gave us. So yeah, if you see that picture of the Tides that just popped up.
So Michael, you're renting this equipment?
Not for the Tides or for Ocean Drive. That is what the GeoBond provided. But this particular activation in Canopy Park, the building is twice the size. So we don't have enough projectors in our GeoBond stock to do it, and I will have to rent 6.
I mean, how much does this cost to just outright buy, so that in the future, if we wanted, you could pause the video, PJ. How much would this cost so that we could have it for future events with different holidays, so that we wouldn't have to rent it for this particular location?
Sure. What you already provided, each projector was around $70,000, and I own 6 from the GeoBond.
And so how many would it cost to do the Bentley Bay for the
10?
So
We're proposing 10.
So
Sorry, Michael,
10 more?
Did you say
No, 10 total.
17 or 70?
But you have 6?
I have 6.
And you need 4 more?
Correct.
And the 4 more to rent is $100,000?
No, there's still all of the hard costs that go into making the event. This is why this event costs more. One of the questions you asked was about how much was the Festival of Lights. and on Ocean Drive. That particular event for 2 weekends hard cost on MMF $200,000. That was with all of the vendors. Just getting power alone and permitting process is $10,000 just to go in with power. So I have a cost breakdown if you want to review it. I'm happy to review it with you. But by the time we do all of the infrastructure, the staff, the permitting, a typical event, I'd say just at which that you've seen at, Pride or at the Ocean Drive, it's hard cost to MMF about $75,000.
So this particular event would be outside the rental of the projectors would be $75,000 for your operation.
Usually they run around there. That is correct. Yes. And that includes all the permitting fees. And I have a detailed budget if you want to go through it. I'm happy to explain it to you, to everybody line by line.
But permitting fees is something we can obviously waive, though, right? Was that?
It's usually the building permit general contracting fee. So a typical, like for Pride that's coming up in a few weeks, it was $7,500 general contractor fee that we're paying the general.
What's the bulk of the cost?
The bulk of the cost is usually in the technical labor, the engineers, projection engineers, the media server operators. There's usually a one-time mapping fee. That's once we map the place, then that doesn't come back again. That's a $10,000 3D scan. Once you do a building, that fee doesn't come back. Security overnight, things like that come into effect. But line by line, it goes into the 75 to 85,000 to do the mapping. And also, what I'd like to tell everyone so they know. When we did Festival of Lights, it was 2 weekends long, so that's why it was $200,000-ish. So about $100,000 when we add in all of the vendors and the fees. My organization actually lost money to produce the event. There wasn't a single dollar that went to Miami Music Festival in producing the event, with all of the fees and everything that involved to produce it. So I'm of course working on that, so we're not losing money every time we put an event up. But the fees are very high in that, and everything that's required to get it to happen. And also for reference, a typical projection mapping event, such as when the Festival of Lights from France approached Miami Beach, the quotes are about $1 million. So we've taken it in order to be able to produce these things, at roughly a tenth of the cost, and that's why there's not a lot of cities worldwide that can do a projection mapping event at this caliber and magnitude.
Commissioner Bott, I didn't want to cut you off, but did you have a question while you have him on the phone?
Yes, please. I just couldn't hear if he said 17 or 70.
For what?
For each.
70.
For each new machine.
To purchase.
To purchase, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any more questions?
I think we reached out to the development team at 1250. We're considering a project in this neighborhood where they're willing to provide public benefits. Let's see if funding this for the community there is something they'd be willing to consider as a public benefit.
When do we need to make a decision? Yeah, when do we need to make a decision by this? Mr. Chair, I mean, this is your item, right?
Yeah.
So when do we want to keep us here? Generally speaking, since we're spending, I don't know, $100,000 on fireworks, I mean, it seems about right. I mean, and minus all the pollution that fireworks brings, I think it's a good event. It's really going to bring everyone together in the neighborhood, and I'm supportive. I think it's beautiful what Michael has done on Ocean Drive, and at the Amman. Not the Amman. What's
Betsy.
Not the Betsy. The
Tides building.
The Tides, and also you're the one that you've done a couple of years ago. The Faina.
We've done Aaron C.
The
Faina,
Faina.
Aaron C.
I mean, it's cutting edge. It's what makes Miami Beach unique and diverse, especially in the arts. So I'm going to be supportive. I wish that we could have maybe some funding to just purchase the additional 3 or 4 that you need so that moving forward we can do it at this location. And just get
I would also, I would also say, you know, we have run into the need of having more. You know, when we just have 6, you know, I would always wanted to extend all of Ocean Drive 14th Street. So I am limited, you know, with just the 6, and that was the max amount that the GEO bond, you know, gave us. So of course we're thrilled that we got that max amount, but there is a need for more than just this one project to expand our arsenal of projectors.
perhaps something that's you want to, or Commissioner Bott want to spearhead. And
Yeah, so let's move this forward with a favorable recommendation, and you speak, and then I'll see if, I'll lead the effort to see if we can include some of this in the public benefit, but Commissioner
Yeah, no,
Bach,
and I would suggest that instead of the public benefit being sponsoring this show one time, is just buying the additional 4 pieces of equipment, and that then gives us flexibility whenever and wherever.
Yeah, and it sounds like, once that projection mapping is done, if we have 4 extra projectors, we could actually produce the show at a cost of $50,000.
So if I may, Chair, we're going to return this to the Commissioner with a favorable recommendation.
Michael, I think we're done with you, okay?
To fund a Halloween 2025 projection mapping event at Canopy Park and to be considered during the 26 budget process, correct?
Yes.
The motion was made by
I'll move it.
Commissioner Suarez, second. Commissioner Magazine, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.